to order, and we will start the meeting with roll call, please, Kelly.
Kevin Boyles.
Here.
Michelle Brecken.
Here.
DJ Dondelinger.
Here.
Randy Heidman.
Here.
Sarah Spear.
Here.
John Ward.
Here.
All present.
Great. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we will move on to the approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Dondelinger and a second from Director Spear. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda is approved. This meeting of the Brainerd School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.02. This meeting is being recorded. Access to the recording will be made available on the school district's website as soon as is reasonably possible. So we will move on to the only order of business in this particular meeting, and that is the resolution canvassing the returns of votes of the school district general election as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
So we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Heidman to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please. Oh, roll call vote. Sorry, thanks, Kelly.
Michelle Brecken.
Yes.
DJ Dondelinger.
Yes.
Randy Heidman.
Yes.
Sarah Spear.
Yes.
John Ward.
Yes.
Kevin Boyles.
Yes.
All in favor.
Great, thank you. All right, so motion carries unanimously. We will entertain a motion to adjourn the canvassing meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Director Ward with a second from Director Brecken to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Canvassing meeting is adjourned. And we will now call the regular school board meeting to order. I guess I'm showing 6:02, Kelly? So let's start out with recognitions. Maybe go round robin if that's okay. I'll start out with congratulations to the following Garfield Elementary School students for being selected to attend the Young Authors Conference at Sourcewell on November 14th. Ellie Erickson, Madeline Lagerman, Emma Kempe, Allison Mueller, Derek Lust, and Rosalie McAdams. Take it away.
Congratulations to the Warrior Girls Cross Country Team. They finished second at the Section 8 AAA team meet and qualified for the state meet.
Congratulations to the Warrior Boys Cross Country runners Ben Statham and John Cowell for qualifying for the state meet.
Congratulations to the Warrior Cross Country coach Casey Miller for being awarded the Section 8 AAA Assistant Coach of the Year.
Congratulations to the girls swimming and diving team. They are the Section 8 AA True Team Section Champions and the Central Lakes Conference Champions.
Yay.
Okay.
Congratulations to Director Brecken for the pronunciation Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. I'll do my best. Okay. Congratulations to Baxter Elementary Students of the Quarter. The following students were selected for showing a positive attitude, being focused, being responsible with supplies, and being ready to learn. Kindergarten, Weston Holton, Minna Norwood, Kinsley Logan, Laura Hansen, Cyrilla Perrine. First grade, Rebecca Lynn Johnson, Rylan McCune, Ivy Messner, Leanna Bolter. Second grade, Elena Herfindahl, Emberly Judnich, Charlie Rudolph, Laney Smith, Kylan Seguin, Dominic Richardson, Beckett Winship. Third grade, Owen Sirik, Mariah Miller, Nora Moss, Karen Swarthout, Tyler Hood, Phoenix Thompson, Journey Neeson. Ariana Gardner, fourth grade, Mila Swedberg, Greta Vogel, Riley Cooper, Lila Jordan, Peyton Andrew, Gracie Kiffmeyer, Hattie McKay, and Bryson Cowan.
Great. Oh, Superintendent Grant, why don't you bat cleanup?
Baxter School's application to the state DNR was accepted and approved. Warrior Woods Baxter Elementary School is now a certified state school forest.
Very cool. Great. All right, we'll move along to public input. I have 2 cards. Do we have any others? All right, then we will get going with Ann Schwartz, please.
Do you want to read the
Oh, sure, I can read the beginning of this. I'm sorry. A member of the public can address the board during this time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Complaints or allegations against students or employees may not be discussed due to data privacy. Complaints or allegations must be submitted in writing to Superintendent Grant. The Board of Education superintendent will not converse with guests to address the topics discussed at this time. Please come forward, Ms.
Thank you.
All right, I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to talk fast and get through as much as I can. If you have questions, let me know. I'm here to talk about Forestview Middle School. Well, there are many, many great things going on there. I don't have the time to talk about that. I'm here to really focus on what I think is the #1 issue, interrupting learning and students feeling safe there, and that's bullying. Middle school is a tumultuous time. Kids are mean, I get it. I've taught in middle schools most of my career. I love it, but this is different. I know the difference. I've also worked in districts in many parts of Minnesota as a consultant as well on this topic and on trauma-informed care. I love middle school kids because they're so goofy, trying out different versions of themselves, torn between childhood and being a teenager. They still care what their teachers think. They're looking for and counting on guidance. And I think there's an opportunity here. So I've been subbing at Forestview Middle School for the last 3 years. I've really, really enjoyed it, and the staff is wonderful. My grandkids also go there, and it's an ideal school. I've been in a lot of middle schools. The physical structure is ideal for community and for working on things such as this and for learning. There's some excellent teachers who go above and beyond, make their lessons engaging, to engage with kids, get to know them. I know and I can feel that the principal and the deans there and the counselors really care. This bullying issue is huge, and they need help. And that's the biggest reason I'm here. My biggest concern is there isn't enough going on to mitigate or monitor or respond to bullying in the school. What I see different about Forestview, I've taught in some huge, bigger than Forestview middle schools. I taught in Wayzata. The number, the frequency, the escalation of bullying, I just haven't seen anything like it. And I think the anti-bullying policy is static. I think they do a great job at the beginning of the year going over it and talking to kids. The consequences, I think, in my opinion and my experience, seem to be inconsistent, but I do have to say that staff there is pulled in so many different and important directions that it's very difficult, I think, to get a foothold on this and really address it effectively. There are no restoration practices that I see, so we all know bullies hurt too, right? And we can help them as well, but also the victims. So I won't have time to get into some examples, but data gathering practices on
Thank you,
bullying.
Ann. Appreciate it.
Am I done?
Yes, 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Now what?
Now, you spoke, as we read in that, the board does not respond during
Okay,
these
no
sessions.
questions or anything?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
The most unusual board meeting I've been at.
And next up, Terry Frovick, please.
Thank you, School Board, for allowing me to say a few words as you engage in the transition to a new school board with new directors. Congratulations to Michelle Brecken for being reelected, John Ward for being reelected, and Stephanie Ederman for being elected. But thank you to Kevin Boyles for your leadership and for the way in which you have engaged the board to weather quite a few bumps and changes and surprises over the years. I've appreciated the way in which you question and the way in which you lead. So thank you very much for your work among the school board. I think it's important to get back to the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, but kids who come into the school, one size does not fit all. So I just want to share a short story and leave it at that. So this kid wanted a puppy. He was 7 years old, never had a puppy. And in the window of the department store, in the window of the hardware store, there was a sign, puppies for sale. And so he saw it, went in and asked the clerk, yeah, puppies for sale, of course. Can I see them? Yeah. So he called the mother dog out and 5 puppies came bouncing around the store. And then the 5th puppy came out, 6th puppy came out, and it wasn't bouncing around, it was limping. And the boy looked and he said, how much is that puppy? And the clerk said, well, you don't want that puppy. Puppy's not gonna bounce and run and jump and play like, oh, I like that puppy. How much is he? Well, $20. So the boy said, I'll give you $2.37 every week until he's paid off. Okay. The boy reaches in his pocket and he pulls out $2.37. And as he's pulling out all of this change, his pant leg pulls up and he's got a brace on his knee all the way down to his ankle. He hands the money to the clerk and he says, I just know that puppy needs somebody who understands. And that's the issue that I think quality education brings to our students. One size does not fit all. And God bless this board when you can enable teachers to see and understand all the different types of students who come into their room. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. All right, we will move along to, where did I lose my place? Approval of the board meeting minutes from October 21st, our last regular school board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Dondlinger to approve the school board meeting minutes from October 21st. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Heidman with a second from Director Spear to approve the consent calendar as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. I will move on to presentations, and we will start with the site continuous improvement goals. We'll start with Christina and move on to our site leaders from there. Hi, Christina.
Good evening.
Now you have your TV on.
Thank you for letting us come back a second time to go through our next set of school summaries about the continuous improvement planning work that occurred in August, and then that work continues throughout the school year. So just a reminder about our CIP process. In August, site teams worked together to review their data from the previous school year, both quantitative and qualitative data, and look at how that data supports whether or not they met their goal, did not meet their goals, or show the progress towards their goals depending on if it was a multi-year goal or not. That data review and goal review is part of the reflection process that they go through. And then after that reflection, they identify goals for the upcoming school year. And we did ask this year that schools create one literacy-focused goal, and a second goal that is a continuation or refinement of a goal that they had been working on the previous year. And then once they've set their goals, they develop an action plan of how they're going to meet that goal over the course of the year. And then over the course of the year, the site team meets and reviews their progress, has data check-in, and then we start the process all over again in the spring and the summer. So what you're seeing in the presentation is really a short summary of the goal reflection that they looked at their data and whether or not they met those goals or not, and then their goals for the upcoming school year. So our first site presentation, we have Molly Rasky, who is the principal of Nisswa Elementary School.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. All right, so I'll try and be quick, but I welcome any questions, follow-up questions after this or during. So last year, we set a goal around MCAs. Typically, we would do that, where we would be increasing from 56.6% proficiency to 59, and we did meet that goal, and that was MCAs. So that's measured in 3rd and 4th grade. I'll talk about what we kind of shifted to in the reasoning for this year. So we did meet that goal last year. We also had goals around SABRS, which is social, emotional, and behavioral. That's within our FAST Bridge as well. And we had goals to use that information to support our students in accessing academics and teaching some social skills and being more strategic around that instruction, and then measuring whether or not that instruction had an impact. And then we also had the district goal around MTSS, moving towards a more strategic and district-wide process around MTSS and implementing those processes and forms. And we did do that. Last year, I think we made more headway in the area of SABRS, MTSS, and then just looking at our data, and FastBridge supported that. I feel like, or I know, that MTSS, we moved to weekly meetings and rotations of each grade level, bringing their concerns to the table and planning our instruction. Every Friday, I meet with a different grade, and so in the past, we've had teachers bring any concerns that they have around a couple students every 3 weeks. And by shifting to 1 grade per week and that MTSS process, everyone comes to the table. So it doesn't rely on whether or not a teacher finds that they need to bring a student. We can discuss the entire group and opportunities where we can support all learners. If students are not meeting standard, 80% of their class is not meeting a standard around a certain skill, we can look for opportunities within the entire instructional period. If students are really struggling and we need to have some more targeted instruction, we can look for different times or supports for that student. So we moved to a weekly meeting and rotations of each grade. So every 5 weeks, we go through every grade level and we can discuss student needs that way. And FastBridge really supported that. So we had common data to talk around. I'm talking too much. I apologize. It's a deep dive and I shouldn't do that.
I think you're doing fine.
Any questions around that? I went too deep.
In our packet, we have a second goal, and I noticed that that goal is not on our.
So that was an error. We only had 3 goals.
Okay.
That was not a goal for
Okay.
Nisswa.
Okay.
And I did not catch that in time for it to be within your packet. So
I was just wondering.
Yep, that's my error. As far as this year's goals, we moved to a growth goal using FastBridge data so that we were not looking at the end of year and only 2 grades. We all understand that MCAs is not around 2 grade levels, but it is difficult to look at information and whether or not we met or did not meet goals for 2 grades. And really, we're looking at just 4th grade. So if we met 1 year, we have 2-3 sections in Nisswa, that could be 1 or 2 students. So we need to look at whether or not students are making progress in all of them. So we're using FastBridge data so that we have benchmarks throughout the year to see if we're making progress towards our end of year goal and that all students are making predicted or high growth. And we're looking at 80% of our students. Now, the reason we came up with that number, our kindergarten and 1st grade, they did not have early reading. And so we could only look at our 2nd through 4th grade last year as far as whether or not they could make growth. So we didn't have data for our whole school, so it was an estimate. So we went with 80% of our students would either be making predicted growth or high growth at Nisswa. And that means that this information, and we can track progress for every student, because every student should be looked at, not just whether or not they're meeting standard on one test, but throughout the year. Some students qualify because they do have a disability, and they are probably 2 years behind. But we should still be making high growth for those students, especially with the investment of different interventions. So, through our MTSS process, we are looking at all students. Are they making progress? And if they are not, we are discussing why. And that could be a student that's exceeding expectations, because all students should be making predicted or high growth. So that's what we moved to as a team this year. As far as our social and emotional goal, we are also looking at improving our behavioral data by 10%. And so last year we had 5 students that were high risk, and over the summer we dip in with those students. The data is showing that the students came in at the same level than they left. So when we look at Nisswa's information around our SABRs, we would have 7 students total high risk. And 5 of those are special ed. So they would have qualified EBD or ASD, which we have a lot of services around. Our collaborative worker is meeting with 54 students right now, and we have 16% of our students are some risk. We have targeted skills. We support the student both in the classroom and out, and then we have 81% low risk. So all of this is part of the MTSS process, which leads to our data digs and looking at our weekly progress. Too much, sorry.
Oh,
Any questions?
very good.
Yeah.
How are the teachers, Molly, how are they adjusting to FastBridge? Are they getting used to plugging in the numbers, and is it becoming easier?
Oh, they have wrapped around all of this. I think when we had our team meeting, we have every benchmarking period, we meet with all the teachers, and they said it was the best team meeting they've had. Excellent. We're looking at common data. We are looking at digging deep into what every student needs, math, reading, and social emotionally, and walking away with some next steps. Then when we come to MTSS, we have progress monitoring within FastBridge that we can see whether or not students are making progress with the interventions between benchmarking periods. And having that within one system is empowering, and also really lets teachers know that what we're doing is working. And if it is not, we should adjust. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
The goal that you have for literacy for this year, am I reading this correctly? The growth benchmark from 63.3% to 80%?
Yeah.
Which is 24. So is that benchmark, is that from
Last year.
And that was just 2nd through 4th grade, and now we're bringing in K through in kindergarten and 1st grade as well? Is that just making some assumptions about what we might expect from kindergarten and 1st grade?
Yes, based on their early math.
Okay.
So the growth information from their early math information from FastBridge, we did make some predictions. So this year, the numbers might not be completely accurate, but we were still comfortable with 80%. If 80% of our students are making predicted, according to FastBridge, or high growth, that means they are on the trajectory that we would predict. What we found last year is that even if a student was exceeding or meeting expectations, it's a growing benchmark. So if those students were not making predicted growth, even if they exceeded in the beginning of the school year, they did not meet expectations on MCAs. So we have to have all students making predicted growth. or they just will not meet expectations. And that MCA is a measurement as to whether or not that student can meet standard. It's against our standards. So the instruction we provide, it is a measurement. But this allows us to look at each student individually and make sure that they are all monitored. Not only our students that are struggling, not only our students that are coming in exceeding expectations, all students.
I love it. I love the challenge.
Yeah.
I think we don't challenge our students enough sometimes, and it sounds like you guys are gonna challenge them.
And I think our teachers are amazing. They are challenging our students, but we need to know that and make sure that they're carrying it over to these progress monitoring tools.
So Fastbridge has predicted growth. So where do those numbers, where does Fastbridge get their numbers from? How do we, I mean, what, are you happy with Fastbridge's predictive growth, or, I mean, is that just a pie in the sky number they bring out, or is this like, these kids came to school after Labor Day, and by Christmas they should be at this point, and by Valentine's Day they should be at this point, and by this they should be at, is that how it works, or how does it work?
Well,
I mean, just,
I do not develop
I'm not really-
Fastbridge, but I can show you my progress monitoring, and I took out all the names and everything. But these are CBMs, so these are progress monitoring in between the assessments.
what's a CBM?
Okay, so it'd be like a running record, they're checking for fluency.
Well, it must have it's an acronym, isn't it?
Right.
There we go.
Thank you, that's why she's next to me. So this student, their predicted growth would be this blue line, you know?
So either above it or below it.
This student is making greater growth than the predicted line. This is the 10 or the 15%. This is where we would be looking at whether or not a student is struggling, or maybe we need to continue looking at whether or not there's a disability there. But this student is making more growth than what the predicted line is.
So their
That's what we
baseline,
want.
what you're saying is their baseline is based at where they are, or where they were at the end of the year last year.
It's,
So if this one's way up here, and this one's over here, and this one's over here, as long as they're growing, we're happy.
we want them growing, especially these students that are all in intervention outside of their classroom as well. We want them growing a year and a half.
So they grow, you're trying to catch them up.
Right,
That's what I was kind of wondering.
yes.
That's a good thing.
So they should be making greater growth than their peers if they have specific interventions. And if they are stagnant, not making growth, then after 3 benchmarking periods or CBMs, then we need to be looking at whether or not that intervention is working for them.
How often do you check this stuff?
So these progress monitoring every week, and then every 5 weeks, we look at this as a team
Gotcha.
to see whether or not our students are making predicted growth.
So you
If they
can
are not,
spot
we
it
need to
early.
adjust.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. It's an amazing program. So excited for it. And it's empowering and validating. With all the work we're putting in, these kids are growing significantly. So these teachers are amazing. So. Thanks.
Okay, I got another question. Do you?
No,
Go ahead.
no, I don't have one.
Oh, come on, make one up. So the social emotional behavior goal. So we're saying that there's a certain number of kids that are at risk, you said,
Yep.
right? Because I just wondered how you track this.
Okay.
So what you're basically looking at is that if by the end of the year we're down to 5, we're going the right direction. If we're up to 12, we've gone the wrong way.
So every single student matters. So I
Yes.
don't want any student at high risk. That would make me feel a lot better.
So how do you know if they're,
So-
how is this, is this the Sabres thing as part of Fastbridge? So you like track them?
Yep, we're looking
Behavioral,
at, and it's a screener, right? So we're just screening to see, are there some things that we could be working on? Behavioral would be the overall, and each area, there's social, academic, which would be executive functioning, and then we have emotional. So whether or not a student can identify their emotions and then also regulate. So if it's a non-preferred, no emotion is bad or good, but we just need to be able to support students. And
the
so this is
teachers
one
know that?
kindergarten class, yep. And elementary teachers do a survey. But, so you'll see the red, and so those are certain skills, and you have to dig into the sabers to see what skill that student really needs to work on. And then we can have our collaborative worker or our teachers to say, ooh, we need to really work on, you know, being able to organize or be able to identify our emotions and use a tool. So if anger comes up in our body, what are some things we could do? Deep breathe, box breathing. We could, maybe we need to implement more go noodle or movement within the classroom. So each of these areas tells us, okay, this is a skill this student needs. These are little kindergartners. We all need to work on things. And so this is how we track it. And we benchmark every 3 times a year. And then we look at whether or not students are making progress in those skills. If they are not, we're not doing the right intervention.
Molly, is there self-assessment built into the sabers?
So that would be in grades at the end of grade 4.
Okay.
And then up through high school. Yep.
But prior to grade 4, it's the teacher's observations.
And we do it as a team. You know, we have specials teachers, we have interventionists, and we all discuss. And it's just a screener. So we don't diagnose anything, but overall, we just look at a class. And so this teacher could be like, yep, we're really going to work on emotional. So zones of regulation, other resources that we have, or curriculum to access. I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
Right, our second presenter is Jim Conrad, and he is the principal of Harrison Elementary.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. That's going to be a hard act to follow. But what you have before you is Harrison's 23-24 goals and our brief reflection upon what we found. Our goal had been to go from 44.9% in 2023 in literacy to 47.9% in 2024. Meeting that target, we were looking for 3 additional students that would then meet MCAs. Unfortunately, we ended up dipping to 35.9%. But when we look at the data, what that meant was 23 of our students did not meet. But a lot of those students for us were students that were at where they needed to be or above when the school year started. And when having to make tough decisions as far as groupings, interventions and such, some of those kids did not get as much of our teacher time as we would have liked because we were focusing on those kiddos that were at risk and not meeting. And so that gave us a lot of information and data to really problem solve for this year and how we're going to get into that and really make up some gains for those kiddos that missed out. A lot of the kiddos that didn't make just barely did not make it, or they were impartial. So there's a lot of positive in that, and that they're very close, and that we should be able to get them back to where they need to be. In goal 3, excuse me, as it's listed there in math, we wanted to increase our students from 46.6% in 2023 to 49.6% in 2024. They dipped to 42.4%. But I would add that we're not able to offer outside of whole group classroom interventions. We're not able to offer interventions outside of that. The other goal there listed for you would be with behaviors and SEL. We wanted to drop our minors or our referrals for behavior by 10% in 2023, which was 524 behavior minors, to 472 of them in 2024. I would state that we did a pretty good job of that, and that is carried over even better this fall during this school year as far as number of referrals that are being made and given for students. Any questions on that before I go on to the second slide?
So you didn't give us you don't have a number for goal 2. You're trying to go from 524 to 472. Is that what you did? Is that what
That was 23-24, so last year. So where we ended up as
It says
it's
in progress.
in progress, that's what we're currently working on, is increasing that number. But that is where the number fell with MCAs.
Oh, 472.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I would state with the behaviors, we're down significantly compared to this time last year.
That feels good, huh?
And many of the behaviors are from the same folks, kiddos having difficulties, which we've been able to identify some of the antecedents, what their issues and concerns are, and able to give them those supports so that we can move them forward. And we're seeing a lot of success with that.
So you think that the reason that we came in at 36% on the reading was because too much time was spent at the at-risk kids, so the kids that were meeting it before kind of got, lack of a better word, I'm sure they didn't get ignored, but didn't
Right.
get as much time spent with them.
Right.
So it's kind of the old deal, the class can only go as fast, you know, it's like the weakest link in the chain type of thing.
Exactly, exactly. Those kiddos still got time. I would state my own daughter was kind of in that mix. She had exceeded in third grade. In her guided reading group, she was usually only able to get one to two times a week, whereas those kiddos that were showing greater need were getting around 3-4 times a week just because of time and
So how do you
staffing.
handle that? How do you fix it?
We're trying to be more strategic with it and getting some more of those interventions in the whole group that have been identified by FastBridge, so that the classroom teachers getting those in the core lessons, and then being a little more strategic about what we're bringing into interventions in our small guided reading groups, as well as trying to get those kiddos that were exceeds or meet last year, getting them a couple more touches as far as small group guided reading time to keep their skills going and being able to give them more of what they need and push them. So it's just kind of a time allotment adjustment, if you will, and getting creative with that so we can give them a little bit more. Because if we give them that extra little push, I really don't think it's going to take a whole lot to get us back to where we were and then beyond.
Oh, good for you. Good luck.
Thank you.
What's an example of a minor behavior?
Minor behavior would be a student that does not necessarily comply right off the bat when given an instruction to go grab the pencil box, grab your notebook, and meet me back at the round table or the group table to get going, to something as using unkind words or budging in line in the cafeteria. Some of those, if they're more minor, we usually try to address it with just a conversation. Then if it becomes repetitive, it will go to a minor behavior, just so that we have some documentation in case it continues to increase. Most of the time, and I'd say a vast majority of the time, that's the end of it. And, we use it as a teachable moment so that the kiddo understands why they're not to do that, why they need to follow the instruction. Is it a safety concern? Is it your classmates are waiting, we want to make sure we have enough time to get started kind of thing. And those conversations are very powerful, and those teachable moments are very powerful.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Looking at this year, we want to move on paper, we want to move our goal from 35.9% to 38.9%. But as a building, we are expecting to exceed that number greatly with what we have in place and a lot of the staff planning and meeting times that we have to discuss data, look at student groupings. We've made it so that at our building, our teachers are able to meet with special ed teachers and interventionists at least one morning a week, so that they have from 7:45 until 8:05 at a minimum to sit down and meet and talk about specific students or groups of kiddos, so that they can adjust their instruction and give them more of what they need to be able to hit on those needs that have been shown with the data in FastBridge. So to me personally, and as a building, we feel we're going to definitely exceed that, maybe even pushing over 40. But we have to set goals for what we put into our plan, and 38.9% is where we're at. I would state that as well for math, really looking at some of those whole group interventions that we can do based on FastBridge data so that we can increase those scores. We have several teachers now that have been trained in AVMR, which is an opportunity for some additional interventions that our staff was not aware and trained on prior to taking that training. And that's starting to pop up inside of our classrooms, more prevalently in special education classrooms, because that's what the original intention of AVMR was, or is, as I understand it, but it has a lot of practical purposes in the general ed classroom. As we get more teachers trained in that in the building, even for them to be a resource to another teacher that has not been trained, we're seeing a lot of benefit to that, and a lot of helpful things really deriving from that training and the implementation of those interventions. So this year our goal is to go from the 42.4 from last year to 45.4 this coming year. It is our hopeful goal that we push above that. We're always striving to go higher, but our goal is written as such. Looking at behavioral minors, again, dropping them from 10% from 534 in 2024 to 481 this current school year. As I stated earlier, this fall, we're well ahead of that curve. And that's due to, I feel, a lot of different things that we're doing in the building. We have our morning meeting time where we talk about social skills, how to be kind to each other, how to handle conflict, how to work through things together as a couple of students and not always needing the adult to come in and intervene. And when they do need it, adults are always there to help out with those items and those conversations, and making sure we're teaching respect to one another, not just students, but also to adults. And we're really seeing a lot of luck with that and a lot of progress with that. It's really heartwarming to see it. Even walking in the hallways now, I'll hear first graders starting up their own eye-to-eye in conversation with another student about why they didn't like what they did to them, and the other student obviously recognizing that and saying, I'm really sorry I did that. And one time I even heard kids say, thank you for telling me that, I'll do better next time. So it's really cute seeing it and really seeing them take hold of those skills. The other byproduct of having some of those social skills taught and the kids really latching onto them and progressing with them is it really leaves you with a lot more high quality instruction time for the teachers in the classroom, because not as much time is being dealt with behavioral interventions or incidents where the teacher needs to pull a couple kiddos aside and have a conversation, which obviously would take away from some guided reading, small group time, or core instruction time with the whole classroom. So that's really another reason why we're feeling we're going to see a good increase in our scores and our data, because more time is being spent teaching and helping the kiddos with the academic portion, because more of their SEL and social skill needs are being met. Also having collaborative worker, we're seeing progress with what she's doing in our building and the groups she's able to work with. And then she's to the point now where with a lot of those groups, she's able to push in and help the kiddos apply the skills that they've been learning in her groups. And sometimes that includes going out onto the playground and working on social skills, conflict resolution, which is a big one on the playground, let's be honest, and having a lot of luck with kiddos really figuring that out as well with her. So a lot of different things going on to help with those items, and I'm feeling really good about the school year we're in and how our data is going to look in the spring.
Are your math and reading goals based on MCAs?
Yes.
Which is just 3rd and 4th grade, right?
Correct. But as a building, we look at all of them and all the kiddos. Mrs. Rasky stated we want all of our kids to grow.
Sure.
And I would state all of our buildings want that in our district. And we really look at all the kiddos in our meetings in the mornings. Is a great time for our teachers to do that and really hone in on what our kiddos need per grade level and small group, whole group, et cetera, so that we're really watching all of them to make sure they're progressing as they should.
But your goal is that 3 students in 3rd and 4th for math and reading will meet standards.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
For both grades or each grade, 3 kids?
Total.
Total, yeah.
Total. Our unofficial goal is much more than that.
Sure.
We really think we can accomplish that, but you got to take small steps to make big progress.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? No?
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, and then our next presenter, we have Tammy Stelmack, and she is the principal of Baxter Elementary School.
All right, good evening, and thank you for letting me be here tonight on behalf of Baxter and our goals. So you can see our 3 goals up there from last year. We had more than 3, but those are 3 that are highlighted. And our first goal was working on educating our students, and we had a secondary goal around that with educating our staff around social emotional learning, wanting to lose less time around transitions and disruptions in the classroom. So focusing on things that we can implement and put in place to help that happen. So you can see part of our list up there, working on understanding feelings through the zones of regulation, or the catalyst approach is a way of helping a teacher take old school kind of less time, you do less as a teacher because you expect the students to engage and be more independent in their learning. Here's the directions, I've said it once. Now, if 10 kids out of 30 want to ask you for directions, you can just point at where it's written and engage in yourself. I don't have to take my voice and my energy again, because we've got to teach those learners to be independent, to help make their own growth and stride. So that's where that's coming from. Yoga Calm is just, I go into every classroom at the start of the school year and then some repeats from there and so forth. I'm a teacher at heart, so I love being in the classroom, but teaching students calm strategy of breathing, which most adults, I think, know something about too, right? Like you take that deep breath when you need it to get recentered so that you can get your focus back where it needs to be. Because again, then that's less time lost from instruction and hopefully a way to help center students from not being off task or disrupting others, learning how to use calming strategies and things like that. And so we accomplished that goal because we did deliver that to 100% of our students. And then goal number 2 and goal number 3 from last year were focused around MCA results, one being on math and one being on reading. And what I would say about choosing to use the MCA data for our goals last year is that, yes, it's only tested and measured in 3rd and 4th grade, like the 2 before me have talked about, but certainly we still, every single teacher has helped our students get there. Every single student matters in their growth. When I go to graduation, and I have no more children graduating, but I try to go every year, and I encourage my staff to go. Melissa Schmeck knows I say every year, go and watch the sea of blue come down, because we are 5 years of building foundations, but we helped them get there. So while MCA tests are done in 3rd and 4th grade, every single staff member in my building, including support staff, help garner those scores, help prepare students to get there. My elementary staff help those seniors get down that hill in a sea of blue, but they aren't teachers of seniors. So the data that you see is really the hard work of everyone in the building, even though it's only measured in 3rd and 4th grade. The other thing about MCA tests that everybody needs to keep in perspective and center around is it's 2 test days for reading and 2 for math out of the entire school year. It's in April, and it's what the child brings to the table that day. In addition, it's if a child was absent on the days of testing. As we analyzed our data and we dug deep into which children didn't meet because we would have liked to seen our results better, some of the students that we certainly thought could have met and produced the right type of work in their day-to-day math and reading on work didn't pass. But then when the teacher looked and said, that child was gone on the regular days of testing, they had to do the makeup. They weren't in front of the teacher doing it, that they're in the makeup room. They rushed. One teacher in particular said, I was surprised my students came, but we can't say anything to them. They go through how they go through. And so they rushed and they came back. So lots of elements factor in. And I think it's wise of all of us looking at that data to keep that in mind. In addition, if a parent chooses to opt out, it's an automatic, does not meet, and we had several of those. So that's a strike against us, and it's not for our work. And in particular, when we know a student could have met or exceeded and they opt out, now they're a do not meet. So all of the layers come into play. Our level 3 children are obligated to take the same test. It's a trickier test for them. Some of them we know can't sustain the level of taking that test. So all of that factors in, and as you can see, our results were not as high as we wanted them to be, but that's what they are at this point. So we'll continue to do our best to work around that and strive to make progress.
Tammy, I'm just thinking out loud, but going forward, will we be able to use FastBridge as data to set goals?
We could have this year if we wanted. You saw that and these are last year's goals, but we're allowed to use either data measurement. We are using FastBridge data, just like Molly talked about in our building, on a regular basis. It's a screener, so we're looking at it as a staff. We set this measurement around that goal.
Right, but I'm wondering going forward, now that we're really getting into FastBridge, if we're going to be able to use that data to set goals rather than
we could
MCA.
Choose to use either one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we sure could.
Because I was a school assessment coordinator. I know what it's like. I mean, those are 2 days and a test, and you to base your whole progress on those MCA scores just doesn't seem fair.
So what's the difference if you were to use FastBridge? Don't you have a certain test that just say on certain days and kind of the same thing? just that there's more of them.
Right, yeah, it's more,
So
there's
you
more
would, what,
of them. and-
average them out for the whole year, is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking?
and
So you could have
would
a
be able
bad
to-
day
you could
and it's
measure
like a bad
growth
game
more-
for an athlete to
Yeah,
make up for tomorrow.
It's an easier way in a screener when you do it 3 times a year to
Don't
look
you do
at
3?
growth.
yeah.
Yeah, looking at growth, and then you can do progress monitoring along the way, but you can look at growth, where for our MCAs, the way that you can look at growth is just from annual, 1 year to the next.
1 or 2 days to 2 days.
Right.
And isn't MCA basically, we're teaching to the MDA standards, correct?
Like teaching the MCA.
I mean, some people could
MCAs.
do that. We don't teach. We teach to the curriculum and we teach to the state standards, but I'm sure some places do teach more around a test.
Okay, I
If
said,
that
you're
makes,
right.
if that makes sense.
I
'cause
said it
some
wrong.
People are,
No, you're right. I mean, I said it wrong. It's just a snapshot in time is what I've
Right.
been told. And I would like to see Fastbridge become more involved because it's a great tool.
Just a thought, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to at least consider going down the road.
for the students not making it, I mean, certainly where you're working with, we have one position of interventionist at our site. And with that one interventionist, we're, working to help as many students as we can. And then certainly classroom teachers are aiming towards interventions and grouping within their classrooms. But if we look at our lowest 20% of our students last year was 105 students out of 505. So the lowest 20% is often a targeted population that needs intervention. And so for our 105 students, we had a 1.01 position of interventionist to work with all of those students. So that.
What does that mean? 1 person for 100 people?
We're not a title school, so we have one interventionist at our site.
So what's the 1.01 mean?
It's a FTE, a 1.0 FTE is
Full-time
how you
employee.
talk about a full-time position. Yep. So if we want to look forward at the next slide, which is our goals from this year, we did keep our goal this year centered around literacy. And we did keep MCA as our goal for this year, and we may choose, as Michelle said, to switch to Fastbridge last year. We wanted to keep it this year around MCA. We're doing a lot of work and training this year, and one of the steps that we thought could help us increase perhaps our score on that is the staff training and work from the online literacy training that we're doing. So that's why we wanted to keep measuring in the same way for 1 more year. So you see that goal up there. We are continuing a goal around SABRS data. Molly already spoke in depth about that, so I don't need to explain a lot around that, but we want to increase the students in the low risk category. You'd like to have more students there. And target is 80% of the kids in low risk, and a higher target than that, true, is we'd like to have 100% of our kids not being very much of a risk around any sort of behavior or academic struggles. So the SABRS looks at, as Molly said, the social, the emotional, and the academic readiness and preparedness. And many students struggle in that area, bringing the right materials, having the right things out, engaging in learning. So that's what that goal is about and around. And we're going to be progress monitoring and measuring that. Our family collaborative worker digs in with a fair amount of our students. That's her position, and her role is to help students who need some extra help and supports in place. We have a partnership with Northern Pines. Some students get counseling on site for needs that they have beyond what any staff member should be expected to provide for them. And then lots of things happening in the classroom, such as read alouds that focus on things like friendships and doing your best and being a good citizen and not having your voice be a volcano because nobody else can learn around you when your voice is going off like a volcano. And we have lots of layers in place that we can do in our morning meetings and throughout the day around that. And then we added our third goal is a new goal for us, and that's around family engagement. We'd love to see 80% as a target, but we were striving to exceed that of our Baxter School families engaged, and we wanted to have 4 points of measurement because we want to have the hard data for that. So we chose to measure the attendance at open house, at conferences, at something new that we're adding this year called Keeping in Touch Days, where we're inviting people to come in during the school day, and I can speak more about that in just a bit. Then our fourth one is some reading challenge participation. So that's our goal, is aiming to have 80%, and we're tracking and measuring that. And I'll explain the last two of them, but I want to speak on the first two first, because you'll know what those are. Open house is not a new thing. We've had it before. In our overall school data for open house, we tried to advertise a little more strategically, put it out on Dojo a little bit more, out on Facebook. We had 91% attendance at our open house this year, and we broke it down also by grade level. For example, 88 in our 4th grade, 93 in our 3rd grade, 94 in a grade, and so forth. And then we also had our special education staff track at open house. Now, we know that oftentimes families maybe have time for one stop, and it's probably the homeroom teacher, but we did want to know how much those families are also checking in during open house with our special education staff. And if that number is lower, what could we do to help them meet those families right away in the fall to have one more connection to the school? And we tracked at 70% of the people who had students on a caseload checked in with their special education teacher. So we could see that in that particular event, we didn't meet where we wanted to be for special education, but we met it at every other grade level. For our fall conferences, our school data tracked at 95% attendance. I looked at previous years, and we are up from other years, but we were also more strategic. Even though many of our numbers, amount of people that staff had to conference with were higher, 80% or more of my staff had 25 or more students to conference with. 40% of my staff had 28 or more students to conference with, based on numbers that they have. And yet, we had that 95% attend at conferences. And what we did strategically was to re-invite. If people missed a conference, try to get them in a second time, offer another opportunity. I had people choosing to do phone conferences with people that didn't make it, just to be persistent in the connection to home, because we wanted to let parents know it's valuable that you hear how your child is doing. We can't be the only one there. We have to have that partnership. We believe in the partnership. So that's where that goal fell. And for our special education staff, connecting at conferences, that was up from open house from a 70% to a 76%. So that's our hard data on those two pieces right now. Our KIT days, our keeping in touch days, are events that we have added in addition to other things that we've always done to get family engagement. And it's where each grade level has one opportunity, anywhere from 45 minutes to, I think it was an hour and a half with one grade level, where we are inviting families to come in for a segment of time during the day, and families can see what is happening with instruction. And so we're excited about that, to get parents in through the door and see what we're doing with our curriculum, and understand that our teachers are working hard and following standards and providing that curriculum for our students. So we have 5 of those, one happening at each grade level. Our 6th one is for our ASD population. They have their own event.
Are the parents participating, or are they observing?
So we've had, that's a good question, John. It depends on how the grade level has set it up. Most of it is set up to be participating. The teacher, the kindergarten grade level, did it all at the same time, which is what we're asking every grade level to do. And they did theirs around morning meeting and some stations. So families could rotate around and join in and see what's happening during station time, see the work that goes on with a teacher sitting back at the guided reading table, which at this time of the year, our kinders are still pretty young, but the teacher can pull kids back to that guided reading table. And now parents were there to go through the stations with their children, but on a day when those adults, the kids are expected to handle themselves at the stations and go through the stations and do the work. So we wanted parents to see that. 4th grade, when they have theirs, is doing like a book club style with the parents. They're gonna have books to read and discussion points with each other. 3rd grade is doing something around like a reading cafe, so. Yep.
So you're trying to get at 80%. Because you said that the open house was at 90, the conferences are at 95. And so you're already exceeding 80 is what I'm thinking, in my head.
At those 2 events, however, if we do the math.
So you're trying to get all 4 of them to average 80?
Right, because we could get 50% right on this KIT day, and so we're gonna do an average.
If we had
of all.
100
Yep.
and a 50, you're at
Yep.
75.
Yep. We want more opportunities. We want to welcome our parents. We believe in that partnership. And so we want our parents to know and understand that they can come in. We want them to come in and see what's happening in the classroom, because it's all great and amazing things that are happening. So
What are the benefits to that?
For families coming in and seeing and knowing that. We're hoping that there's engagement at home. So I just was at a parent-teacher conference yesterday, between conferences, because we wanted to do a check-in. And the parent, we were at that meeting teaching the parent about some math things that they could do at home to help this child progress in math. So coming into an event, they can see some of the things that kids are working on. And
Do you think it helps with absenteeism or any, I just think the more engaged they, I mean, is that why you're doing it?
that's what the hope is.
I mean, I remember when I went to school, it was like teacher conferences, and that was, other than choir concert or band concert or a game or something, parents weren't really around the school that much. So that's kind of the idea, though, the more they get engaged, that maybe,
Participatory in education, look for that Kiwi pack when it comes home, maybe being willing to do. One I didn't speak about yet is our fourth area that we're going to measure is reading challenge participation. So we've put a few of them out to families right now. They're optional for people to participate in, but we set one of them as take a picture of your child reading a book outside. And then they would send that picture into our teachers via Class Dojo, had a 1-week opportunity to send it in, and then the teachers would highlight those pictures on the side as you're seeing in the classroom. And what kid doesn't love seeing themselves on the screen, and what parent doesn't love taking pictures of their kid, but we were hoping that in addition it promoted reading at home. So that's kind of some of the logic behind that one is we want kids reading outside of the school day, and we're looking to kind of gift them the opportunity to do it. A second one was read at home with a pet or a stuffy. Take a picture, send it in, show us that you've got a book in your hand outside of school. So.
Tammy, do parents have to set an appointment up, or can they just bebop in and go into the classroom and see what's going on? Or would you prefer them to contact the school first?
So that's a good question. So of course for the KIT days, it's scheduled and everybody is there. If they want to come into a classroom, we don't necessarily just have an open time, like come down and stand and watch in a classroom, but we encourage volunteering. So because they've got to be in that classroom, they should be on the approved volunteer list if they're going to be potentially pulling and working with other kids. If they're coming in for something like that KIT day where the teacher's still in the classroom, all eyes on everything, they don't necessarily then have to be on that approved volunteer list, but they can't be then working independently with kids. So we love our volunteers and those people who want to come in to do that sort of thing. We usually have a set time for them. We know they're coming, that sort of thing. It can be a disruption, and I think sometimes people don't realize this. It's not someone trying to be a hindrance to somebody coming in, but if a child doesn't know so say for example, birthdays are a big deal and the birthday cupcakes come in, we usually say just leave them at the desk in the office and we get them down to the classroom. And it's not because we're trying to micromanage, but a child doesn't know you're coming. It's now at 10:15. Math instruction is happening. So if a parent shows up at the door with 24 cupcakes at the door, the kid gets excited, the class is interrupted, the math lesson stops, and now 505 students, and everybody has a birthday or a half birthday, which we celebrate if their birthday doesn't occur during the school year so they don't get missed. Imagine that interruption. So to your point, we love people coming in to volunteer or for things that are set and known, but an unknown can be a disruption, if you will, and that's how we try to explain it to families so they don't feel like we're trying to be a roadblock from them coming in. But get on that list, and we'd love to have you see what's happening in that classroom by choosing to volunteer. You know, come in for an hour twice a month if you can, or something like that. So, any questions?
what's the dojo?
It's an app that families can use. It's called Class Dojo. I don't know whether somebody came up with the name right. There's an app called Seesaw, which we don't use. There's an app called Remind, but we got all on board as the district in the elementary to use the same one, and it's called Class Dojo. So it's an app that you can have on your phone. It's web-based as well. And so it is an opportunity for a teacher to communicate directly with a guardian without giving, I don't necessarily want to have 505 families have my personal cell phone number because I don't want to be available 24/7, but I can communicate with them in the app and they don't then have your cell phone number, but it's direct communication because it pops up on the app. So someone could say to a teacher, there's a change in pickup plan tonight, DJ's not on the bus, I'm going to be in the pickup line. So there it is right there. So it's an opportunity and a way to communicate.
Not gonna ask, what's the kiwi? What's the kiwi that comes home? Is that a fruit or is it a
It's a
New
brand
Zealander,
name
or
of
what
a
is it?
bag that has Velcro on it, and you send books back and forth in it. It could be a Glad pack, and then it would
You
be a
guys have all
Glad
your
Ziploc bag
things, you
with
know,
books
it's
in
like-
it.
I haven't gone to elementary school since my kids got out of there. It's been a while.
DJ,
I'll
come over
swing
to
by.
Baxter. Come on
I've
over
been
to
to
Baxter and
Harrison.
see what's
Harrison one
happening.
time.
I've got places I'll take
Been to
you.
Garfield. I'm working on it.
Oh, the places you'll go if you come to Baxter. I'm gonna take you around.
Can't find
Show
it.
you
There's all those
classrooms,
roundabouts back
hardworking
there. I get
people.
lost back there. Then the new forest, wandering around trying to find the front door. I was back there one day. Well, thanks. A lot smarter now.
All right, thank you.
Christina, while John's transitioning up, I just want to, there's one thing about the MCAs, I kind of lost track of. When did they reinstitute the opt-out penalty? Because in 21, it didn't count.
2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago.
So the 24 MCAs, 23 MCAs, if a kid opted out, it counted against us, but prior to that, it did not.
So before that, it was just an opt-out, and now it's a
Well, they did it one
it's a
time for
zero?
COVID. It always
It's a
was the opt-out was a
zero.
penalty.
So it's
And then
more
they
it's like a
suspended it for
Yeah,
2021 or 22 or whatever, 22.
Holy cow.
The tested.
Gone.
It's like,
Okay.
I guess, right?
Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years. It's been 2 years of that. Okay, so again, our final school for this evening, we have John Anderson, and he is the principal of Forestview.
This is called the confusion close, John. Put
Good
so much
evening.
Information in front of them, they just.
I promise I'll throw a lot of acronyms our way here
Yeah,
too.
let's get some more.
I was told not to add any more slides to the presentation, but I did feel I needed to bring a packet to support some of the things that we're talking about, just anticipation, some questions with that. So there's some surveys that we're sending out to kids and some data that we're going to obtain from staff, and those are the things there. So I'll just highlight and reference that as we move forward with the information about Forestview. So 23-24 reflection. Goal 1 and 2 will be moved forward into this upcoming year, of which I'll share with you in a few moments about what we're changing and improving with those. But as you see there, Goal 1 is our reading goal. That will still be in progress. We have some improvements that we are implementing this year, again, which I'll reference. Goal 2 is about our improved social emotional learning and our programming for that. We're wrapping that into our 24-25 CIP plan as well, so I'll reference that. Goal 3 was with math. We will not be moving forward to that with our CIP, but we will obviously still be moving forward with our with setting goals with our math department and our math PLC about student achievement data. What I do want to mention about our mathematics in terms of our 23-24, we're a little bit surprised of where that data was at. We anticipated a much better result than that. But as you probably know at this table, that we did talk, we have been involved at the middle school pretty deeply in a curriculum review process for math. As you know, the last few years, we've been digging deep with that evidence-based strategies and researching those. How does that then connect to the resources that we use, which then was the purchase of the Reveal curriculum, and then also, or the Reveal resource, and then also embedding those, building that thinking classroom in there. So we're pretty excited. They are implementing all of the things that they said that they were going to do with that research and that implementation of that new resource for math. It just won't be reflected into the 24-25 CIP plan. Any questions with 23-24? Again, Goal 1 and Goal 2 will be represented in the 24-25.
So we are doing I thought the building thinking classroom thing was like a pilot that you were doing as a class or two? Or
There are components of building a thinking classroom, of group work and discussing processes, math processes with a group, with your teacher, and that teacher facilitation. There are components of that, correct.
For every kid in Forestview this year?
Yes. Yep.
Do you know that?
So that's embedded into every class? Building thinking classrooms?
into
math?
mathematics. Group work and facilitation of discussion of mathematics in relation to our process of problem solving.
Yeah, it's not a curriculum, it's a.
No,
I
no, no, no,
understand.
no.
It's a
No,
process.
there's
I
a strategy. Yep.
Yep. So we'll have nothing to compare that to then, whether or not that strategy is working.
Our MCA data and our FastBridge data that we can take a look at from year to
Okay.
year and then from fall to spring.
Okay.
What's the
Because-
rationale for not having a math goal? Just because you
Otherwise, we'd have 4
Okay.
for our CIP.
need your goals, okay.
Yeah, so our math folks are still working, doing everything that we just didn't put it in the full CIP plan. Part of that too is we put in a CIP plan, we then prioritize staff development dollars. So the last 3 years, we've been prioritizing staff development dollars for our mathematics and our science folks to be able to do that work that they did.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I just was curious.
Yep, it didn't go away.
Yeah.
It's there.
Back to the thinking, or the building, thinking building classrooms, whatever the heck it is, that's not district-wide. That's just something that's being done at Forestview in the math classes.
I can't speak to the high school. I know they were involved in that process, but I know at Forestview, we are using those strategies. Yep.
Yeah, and so it's currently just being utilized at Forestview.
Okay.
And there are certain practices that are layered in with other types of instruction. So there's like he said, the grouping strategy, the discussion conversation, math conversation, and then that's paired with some explicit instruction as well. So that's a layering in with more explicit instruction, direct instruction as well.
The only reason I asked the question, at least we'll be able to maybe do some comparisons with other buildings then, because I've read quite a bit on the building thinking classrooms, and it's really, some people are equating it to the science of reading, where we left teaching reading the way it was done back in the old days, and for all those years, and now we have the science of reading. There's some people that are equating this thinking building classrooms to that same concept of reading, that it's not evidence-based. Now, there's arguments on both sides, so it'll be interesting to compare the data, because it's not district-wide, it's just being implemented at, and we did have the ability at a DAC meeting to, I can't remember who the math teacher was, but boy, he talked about an energy. I mean, my gosh, and I guess the kids love him.
Talking about Max Kruger?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave a presentation.
Stop by his class anytime. I do want to highlight, there's extensive work about evidence-based strategies and how that embeds in what we should be doing in the classroom and the resources we use. So please know that Reveal resource purchased is really aligned with the research that the math folks have done about evidence-based practices. So.
The curriculum.
Exactly.
Yeah, what I was referring to, John, was just the thinking building classrooms.
Yep.
There's still people arguing about that.
Yep. And my point wanted to be that we're fully implementing Reveal this year. So part of that, not into 24, 25, because we're in that implementation phase of that.
Okay, cool, thank you.
So just to catch me up, because that takes a lot, is, so basically with your goals, you find that social emotional learning and educational programming is more important than math? Because you took math out to leave SEL in because you didn't want to have 3 goals, you only want to have 2? Is that right? So SEL is more important than?
No.
Well, then why would we, and it's not measurable very easily, maybe with Sabres or however that works.
I could say it this way, math is on the list, but if we have 3 goals to present tonight, there it is. The 3 are there. Again, math spent a lot of work over the last 3 years with that research that they had done, and they are in the phase of implementation of that with that Reveal resource and what they're doing in their PLCs and what they're doing in their departments.
So these are the 3, so you're saying yes? These are more important than the math. That's all I've cared. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Well,
I just want to know where you're coming from so that I know what to expect.
I don't want to go on record and say it's more important.
Well, then why is
But we
it-
have 4 there, but these are the 3 that we would like to highlight about some things, about some action plans that we're doing.
Okay.
So we could do 1, 2, 3, and
We could probably do
3A.
we could probably do 23. I'm just,
Yeah.
But what I think I heard you say, John, was, thinking about the SEL and how we help kids regulate and de-escalate situations. That is a school-wide goal. Every teacher, every person in the building is focused on that. The math goal, all of the math teachers are focused on that. Not to say other folks in the building don't care about that, but you need to have everybody's eyes on this goal.
Yep.
Is what I feel like.
Well said. I can expand on that too when we talk about our 24-25 goals, so. There it is. First one, literacy. Again, this is a carryover. This is our literacy goal. We've had this statement as far as our overall plan for about 3 years now. This is probably the 4th year that we've talked about our school-wide literacy initiative. So a few things I need to share with you that we did, like many other schools did, switch our ACOMP building-wide literacy goal to a growth goal based on FastBridge data. So the things that you've heard from elementaries, there are some parallels that we're doing with our language arts PLC and our teaming and our department meetings with language arts when review of FastBridge data. Take a look at groups of students who need some individualized small group work. And so in our grade level PLCs are diving into that next step of doing those interventions with those students. So we did switch, instead of MCA, as far as our ACOMP goal, we did switch to that growth data between fall and spring for those students. It's not listed there, but that was part of our school-wide literacy plan. So PLCs, departments diving into a little bit deeper with that FastBridge data. In your packet, I think it's towards the back. As far as actions for a literacy plan, it's in your packet on page 3, I believe. We've been reviewing our school-wide literacy plan. We really want it led by our language arts teachers. They know best. But when you go from elementary and you switch to middle school, you start to have specialists, right? I'm a science teacher. How do I help kids read better? So we need to have a unified plan with that. And so our language arts folks have met twice now this year. We've reviewed what we've done over the last 3 years, and we have some other plans to enhance some things. But if this was an electronic copy, the literacy link is there. We're doing a pre-test, post-test, which I'll share in a minute, and we do have a document of classroom applications for our literacy expectations. And so if you go back to the, let's see, halfway through the packet, you'll see that wonderful little mini poster with the paper airplane. This is how we define at Forestview how everybody who has a classroom can help out with literacy. We have 2 big buckets that everybody in every classroom needs to focus on. It says it right there. Number 1, complete sentences. So if I'm in a science classroom, if I'm in a Project Lead the Way classroom, I'm in a social studies classroom, we focus on complete sentences. So if we have, we try not to do multiple choice, but if there are essay questions, we don't accept bullet points. We wanted Forestview Middle School students are expected to answer all questions in complete sentences. We start with a capital letter, use proper sentence structure, and end with correct punctuation. That's bucket number 1 for everybody. Bucket number 2, and this came from our language arts folks a few years ago, our academic vocabulary. So students at Forestview will understand and communicate the definitions of these words. Number 1, define, and 2, apply these words to multiple academic settings. So if you walk around Forestview, you may see in a social studies class these 5 academic vocabulary words on a laminated sheet in the front of the room. And so they will highlight that during certain parts of their lessons. So Compare and contrast, summarize, analyze, demonstrate, and evidence. That is, there's some background with that with MCA. And also our language arts folks said that these are most commonplace, transferable academic vocabulary in all subject areas. So going back to kind of the action plan there, we are planning on doing a pre-test, post-test. Our pre-test for these academic vocabulary words will happen in January, and then we'll do a post-test in May. And it will be assessed, and the assessment link is there if you had the electronic copy, about how well do our kids able to define these academic vocabulary words, and how well are they to, or how skilled they are in the application of that as well. So we're meeting multiple times during the school year to review our literacy plan and to keep giving support and extra resources for our non-language arts folks to help with that initiative. Questions with that part? Okay. Our second CIP goal for this year, I have Forestview Middle School will continue to improve social emotional educational programming for this year and construct a plan for SEL programming for following years. So we have brief history lesson. We have changed different resources for social emotional learning and life skills. We've done second step resource. We've done being a good human, I think it was called. We've done a little bit of research. Our leadership team looked at this, and there is a wonderful resource called Top 20. So on one of the pages in the packet, there's some bullet points of our action plan. All of our counselors have delivered top 20 lessons. Now, there are certain skills that are delivered for students for that. Real common language. Nothing fluffy, but these are just life skills. So these are the things that all students have already learned. Lessons have already been delivered to all of the students, 5, 8 already. Next phase for our school counselors is then to take our SABRS data and do some small groups and reinforce some of those lessons. So this is what they call top 20 lessons taught, the line. Students learn to identify their moods and states of mind as being positive, which means above the line, or negative, being below the line. So taught some skills to be able to do some self-analyzation about what mood they're in and how that affects them and the ones around them. Triggers and invitations. Students are taught that how different situations that invite them in to go into either below or above the line. Indicators. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that signal that they're below the line. Phrase called submarines. How do you protect yourself and others when you're below the line? And trampolines, positive and healthy tools to help you bounce back to be above the line. So in our leadership team, in August, we determined that we are going to start, we have a couple, we have a 3-year implementation plan for this. Year 1 is where our counselors are going to deliver all of the instruction, and they did that already. They are then going to, like I said, take some small groups of kids that we have some SABRE data, small groups, and assist with teaching these tools. Our job then in the summer is to develop follow-up lessons that core teachers can teach in their classroom or during power time. That's not been developed yet, but that's step 2. Along with that is then to encourage other teachers to be trained, and then we can have them teach these lessons to students so it's not all on our counseling team. 3rd year then would be a full implementation of all of the lessons delivered by our counseling staff and a full body of follow-up curriculum that all of our teachers then can follow up, or if there's a certain time of the year that they see some trends with their own team, they can revisit these lessons and feel comfortable about delivering those things. So in essence, we just decided to stop messing around with other resources, go with a tried and true one, that we know that there's research behind that. It's supported by CASEL, and it really has kid-friendly language. And so that is our, again, goal 2. Along with that, which kind of relates to goal 3, about our experience for students and staff, we are in the process of also educating our staff again about what top 20 skills are. So we have a staff meeting tomorrow, and we'll be covering the summary of these things. And then we'll also be encouraging them to talk in some groups about how they can already implement the language and reinforce that language of the top 20 skills that have been taught to the kids already. Last thing about SEL is we're implementing, for the last couple of years, we used to call it Fun Friday. We're doing Flex Fridays. And what we do is we take 25 minutes every Friday during their power time, and we put academics away. Just close your Chromebooks, put everything away, and we have a little fun. And so it's either board games or it's a directed activity by the team or directed activity in certain classrooms in order to get kids to just interact with each other, meet a new person, get to know some people in your team. So that's, again, connection to social emotional learning. And once, again, if you know more about somebody, you might be a little bit nicer to them. And so to encourage some of that interaction between kids and get away from screens and start looking at eyeballs and have some fun. So, for example, if you walk down, I use 7C for example, if you walk into their team, you'll notice that there's card games and board games all over their tables in their commons area. And in fact, they encourage students to do that instead of screens before school, is to play Connect 4. So that's one piece of that with our social emotional programming.
You have Flex Fridays every Friday?
Every Friday. Yep. Well, the reason I call it Flex Friday is because there are some students that still want to work. So we do have a classroom for kids if they want to get their homework done. So instead of semantics, but we just added a room in every team that a kid can go to if they need to finish their test or they're behind on homework. So in addition to, well, we'll just move on to Data Dig, the third goal. Improving middle school experience for students and staff. FMS will engage in efforts to assess student and staff school climate, discuss school climate, data information, and take efforts to improve the student staff data. So, hate to do a little history lesson again, and I hate to bring up COVID, but if you look at middle school, and if you all looked at the national trend between student achievement and behavior, when we finally came back and we were all together all day long, we had to reevaluate what we were doing with our systems and our support for kids and making sure that they were focused on being in a safe, supportive environment. So for the past 3 years, Forestview, as our staff and our CIP, if you look at our ones from previous years, we were really focused on behavior, which was important and necessary at that time. Still important. But our question was, how are our kids behaving back then? The question that we want to talk with our leadership team is, how are our kids doing, and how are they doing in the environment that we're providing? And so that was where we wanted to do some data dig. So we're going to do we're doing pre-test, post-test for both staff and students, and I'll share that in a minute. We did a lot of work with behavior, and as a building principal, I'm very proud and pleased to where we're at, and nothing is perfect. But we've made some significant changes with our behavioral programming, our support programming, our reflective and restorative efforts in students, whether it be a bullying situation, a conflict resolution, or a true discipline incident, that we really try to have things in place and structures in place that students have to be reflective and restorative in whatever that situation was. And I could go on for that, but for time, I won't go in a little bit deeper with that. Goal 3, not only are students being trained in top 20, our staff will be this year too, through our staff meetings. In addition to that, the back part of your packet shows 2 surveys. One is the staff survey that we did in the spring of 2024. We will be doing that in December, maybe January, late December, January. Those are the questions that are on the back of your packet. It says FMS staff survey. And there are topics that we asked staff: faculty mindset, school climate, staff-family relationships, school leadership, and staff leadership relationships. I did not want to print up the data that we had from last spring because it would have been a lot of pages. So if you want to see the data, you can take a look at that. I can share that with you. We reviewed this in the fall during workshop week. We reviewed this at our last staff meeting, and we had some discussions about what that means. What were some things that looked really well? What were some things about our staff and our culture as adults that we need to put on the table and address? So we're having some discussions with that. The survey right before that is the school culture student survey. We're going to be sending this out either next week or the week after. We're going to get that at the end of November, early December. We pulled some of the questions from the Minnesota Student Survey, and then we created some other ones about data that we want to see. So we want to know, and we want to be able to share with staff, what are our students saying to us about their experience at school? And so we're going to pull that data before holiday break. We're going to review that after holiday break and get in some discussion groups and talk about some different action plans that we can take a look at. We're going to break that down by team. So each team will have their own data, what they're seeing with this. We're going to give it to these students, like I said, here in November, December. We will then give it again with the same questions in May. See if the needle moved at all or where things happened with that. It's very important that when we talked about this with our leadership team, that we have data to lead our direction, what we want to do. So all 1,600 kids are going to get this by team, and we'll have some time then built in the school year to have some discussions with that.
Well, I think it's great you're surveying the teachers. I think it's terrific you're surveying the kids. Are you surveying the parents?
No.
Why?
There's a lot on the plate. Want to make sure that what we do right now is done with high quality and have the time and effort that we can have. Love to. But what our discussion was our highest priorities right now for us is the adults under the roof and the kids under the roof at Forestview. Engagement of parents is huge, but being able to do certain things and having the time for that, we determined at our leadership team, let's look at what our staff are saying, let's look at what our kids are saying.
John, how many times a year do you do the student survey again?
Twice.
Twice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Pre-test, post-test, twice.
John, were your counselors trained in top 20?
Yes.
So they went through the training?
Yes. 2 of the 4.
Okay,
The other 2 will get it.
okay.
Yeah. I probably should share with you just real quick. I didn't mention this. Part of our training for staff, it hits 2 buckets. We purchased a staff journal for all of our staff, and we'll roll this out tomorrow, actually. That the journal goes through all of the skills that kids are learning, and then it also has our teachers reflect on how does that affect you as a human being and how you interact and what do you bring to the culture of the building. But then also how to use those skills in your life. So it serves 2 purposes. We want to talk about our adults and the culture that they're in and help create and maintain, and then also teach them the skills there. So we're doing this as well as far as training with our staff. Again, we got to take care of our adults and make sure that they're performing as best they can or being the best version of themselves, because then we know that's going to transpose to the kids.
Well, thanks. Quite the update.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
And thank you, Christina.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, we'll bring up Barb Dorn from MSBA. Hopefully has booked one of our hotels that has a bar in it tonight.
No, that's all right. Hello, everyone. Nice to
Hi.
see you.
Good to see you.
Hi, Barb.
Hello there. I'm going to hand out the information that I emailed to you. I did get some copies of it. And then we'll talk through your options, because you do have options. You always have options.
Thank you.
Ron? Hi, Randy.
Hey, how's it going, Brad? Thank you. Thank you.
Already?
Oh,
There you go.
thanks.
I've got one, so I'm good.
Okay, because I have an extra one
I
here too.
printed
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. So, the reason I'm here tonight is to revisit your superintendent search. As you know, last year, you launched a search. We had this meeting on April 2nd. And at the conclusion of 5 weeks, you had not found the right person, and so we tabled it. You brought in interim superintendent Grant. And so we revisit with all of our boards that were not a successful search the first year, what they want to do this year. You have a lot more time this year because it's only November, so you're 5 months earlier than we were the last time I was here to talk about these exact same issues. Generally, a repeat search is, it's a repeat search, and you're going to have one new board member in January. Everyone else, you've been through this, you've been through the training, you understand what's going to happen, so things do move more quickly as far as the board investment and time that you need to put into in terms of doing this search successfully. So one of the things tonight is we can go through this whole packet. You have a lot of decisions to make. If you'd like to follow the suggested timeline I have in here, this does suggest posting the position in a week or two. We could talk in general about the search process, pros and cons of starting now versus maybe launching it in December instead. And I could come back in a couple of weeks and we could do it then in terms of making detailed decisions about the search process. So that's when I said you have options, you definitely have options. So when we start a search over, as you know, we never charge for a second search at all. We in fact didn't charge last year. We wait until you have a successful candidate and a signed contract before we actually invoice the district. So I want to remind everybody, there is no cost or additional cost for any of the work that we're doing with you. We want to make sure that you're happy with the process and with the candidates and with your final determination about who's going to be the next superintendent for Brainerd Public Schools. So I think the best way to start is to just take a look at the very first couple of items on the planning meeting packet. We won't do introductions because I'm Barb Doran, MSBA Director of Leadership Development and Executive Search. For folks behind me that don't know me, they all know you, and so we're not going to go around and do introductions. We also won't review the process because you have been through it. So if you take a look at the timeline, I have put some suggested dates in yellow. Those would be board meetings, but there's a couple of things I want to cover overall before I turn it back over to Chair Boyles to facilitate if you want to adopt a timeline tonight. So one of the things that I will ask right off the bat is in terms of a public survey. Last year, we did the stakeholder survey. You had an outstanding response from your community with over 1,100 people filled it out, which was phenomenal for a district your size. You could skip that survey this time if you so choose. Most districts do skip it because it's been 5 or 6 months.
I think ours opened on, I think ours closed on April 14th. I looked at it today. I have it.
Yes,
I
it was
could open on the
emailed to you.
5th and close on the 14th.
April 14th. So April 3rd, April 14th is 1,128 people. I know that you're also working with Leatherman to do a survey, I believe, correct? A more in-depth market research survey. I haven't had a district redo a whole survey in a redo search, but if you want to, we can do it. So that's the second line. You'll have to decide if you want to do another public input survey or not. That's one thing that tends to be a little bit different. We do another Q&A session, host it, record it, put it on the website because your timeline will have changed and we want to make sure that candidates have a chance to watch that as well. We'll do more search preview meetings. We met with 3 groups last year, internal leadership groups, to explain the timeline, the brochure, the survey opportunity, answer questions with your internal leadership teams as well. We'll do those again. We did those virtually last year. The 2 meetings that most boards combine in a redo search, you don't have to do it, but your option would be that first one where it's interview training, possibly discussing the survey report, along with the meeting that you determine finalists. Interview training, if there's one new board member, I can do that with them one-on-one in a virtual meeting. If anyone here wants to go through it again, we can certainly do that. I have the same packet of information. We talk about protected categories. We go through all of those same circumstances. So I'm still happy to do both of those meetings if you feel it's necessary. The first meeting will be longer if we have the survey again, because there'll be a summary report for you to review. That's when you make some decisions about what's next in terms of working with additional groups during the interview process. So some people do combine those two meetings together. Otherwise, it's the same. The round one interviews, typically 3 to 6, 7 people max. Round two interviews, 2 to 3 people. So those are the only big changes to the timeline. So maybe what I'll do is just answer questions about the timeline in general. And if you don't have questions and you want to move ahead with solidifying a timeline right now, this is about a 3.5-month timeline. That's a typical search, 3.5 months. You would be done with this timeline by the end of February, early March at the very latest. Unless for whatever reason we want to extend the search deadline, keep it open longer, we can always make changes as we go through the process. Or you could wait and launch it in December, as I said, and you'd be done maybe in the middle of March. April is when search season is at its peak. So no matter what, whether you decide tonight to move ahead with firming up timelines and making all the decisions right now, or do it again maybe at the end of November, early December, you'll be done before peak search season really kicks in. And that was not the case last year. Any questions for me on the overview of how it's different as far as what the board is required to do? Hearing none. Chair Boyles, over to you.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, well, let's just open it up for open discussion, particularly amongst the 5 of you. I will not be part of this process, so I think, I'll just try to direct the conversation and add tidbits based on having gone through 2 superintendent searches myself. So maybe we kick it off with, what do you think of the timeline as it's structured now?
I think we should wait a couple weeks. I can't remember why, because you were going so fast with the deal, but I don't think we need a public survey. Does anybody think we need a public survey? Since we just did it?
I don't.
So I guess that's one thing down, right? Today's the planning meeting, right?
What did you mean when you said you want to wait a couple of weeks?
What were you talking about? You were kind of flying there through that deal. You're like, we don't need to do this today. We can wait a couple of weeks. I
Yeah.
can come back up, da-da-da-da-da.
This is a typical planning
Oh,
meeting
we were
packet.
gonna go through and pick out all the questions tonight and set up.
No, not all the questions, but you do
Oh, we
need to
were
make
gonna-
this, if you want to post on November 25th. I actually might suggest backing it up to November 20th because we have 2 searches posting on the 25th already. If you want to do that, then you have to make decisions tonight on the timeline, all of the vacancy brochure information, including salary. There's a new law going into place, if you saw that in your packet, that you have to post a range.
Right.
That's different. So you'd have to identify that, if not tonight, at some point before we go live with the postings. You'd have to make decisions about what you'd like to do with national advertising, background checks, although that, last year we had it as to be determined. Whether you want me here in person for all the meetings, or if I should still do 1 or 2 virtually like I did last year. You would have to choose the questions for the application. I circled the 2 questions on my list that you had in the application in Rebellis. Those could be different this year. All of those decisions will be made tonight so that we can launch everything in a week or so. Or we talk big picture about things that you want to do again, things that you don't feel are necessary. You can keep this packet, and I'll come back up maybe first week of December or the week after Thanksgiving. And then we can go through all of those decisions to be made.
That would be a special board meeting.
That'd be a special board meeting.
I think our regular board meeting's on the 10th.
In December.
Yep, it's on a Tuesday. It's after the big event or whatever, the bingo or whatever. it's on. Well, I would vote that we should take the time. What I don't want to see happen is that what happened last time. So I think we need to make some changes, or we're just gonna end up with more of the same. And so I didn't get, it's probably my fault, but I didn't see this information until yesterday, I guess, was it? And I've been kind of whipping through the questions, whipping through the job description, whipping through some of the stuff, and I know myself, I'd like to have a little more time to really try to make a good decision. Kevin, Sarah, were you in? No, you weren't on the board when the last, were you, so you've been on this, this is your,
Her second.
this is your 3rd round too. or second, you've done it twice. Well, for some of us, this is all flew through. Remember, I was like, well, I don't know why that question got in there, and you're like, well, you voted on it. Well, it's like, yeah, well, I didn't know what I was doing. Well, now I do know what I'm doing, and I'd like to take my time, and I think this is a very important deal for a lot of people, and a lot of families, and a lot of educators, and I don't see any reason that we have to rush. You told me last year that the peak week is Christmas, when everybody's off on their breaks, that you get a ton of applications at that time because they have time to think and write their stuff out. And so I don't know what the panic is if Christmas is kind of prime season, for lack of a better term. I don't know why we would rush this tonight and try to hammer out all these questions and all this stuff in a hurry when we could all just kind of come up with what we like, and then next meeting we'd be way more organized, I think.
Again, for what it's worth, department, I actually agree with you. I think, we deliberately are starting this early, and speaking with Barb when we were setting this up, we know we're way out front, and we're doing that on purpose.
5
so that we
months.
can be methodical and do the exact opposite of what we did last time. Last time we were rushed in a lot of senses, and really is no fault of anybody. It was just circumstances and timing more than anything else. Because for me, again, from what I would say is two things that I would definitively say from the first search we did 2.5 years ago to the one we did last year, where I think what I would do, one, definitely want to craft a structure where there's a lot more stakeholder input during the interview processes, which we did 2 times ago, but this last time we really didn't. We kind of, we didn't feel we had time to really have those candidates meet with various groups like community groups, teacher groups, administrator groups, things like that. We skipped all that this time. And then the other thing I think is the length of time that you want the posting out there. So the sooner it's out there, it's out there. But to your point, I'm sure there are a lot of people that knew we had an opening a year ago that have been sitting back and watching and whatever. So I think a couple of weeks isn't going to make a difference. I don't know that I would wait a month, but.
Well, Barb said the week after Thanksgiving. Well, we're not talking about very many more days to just our regular board meeting. The week after Thanksgiving is what, the 5th or something like that? I mean, if you
Do
wait.
you want to find a time for a special meeting where we go through and make these decisions and you have some time to absorb the things that are in here? We can pull out calendars, and I can look at my calendar right now and my availability as well. Just before the holidays is a good time to post. I don't know if it's peak time, it's not as busy, but people who are certain they're going to be looking for an opportunity do take the holidays as sort of a breather to start uploading resumes, getting letters of recommendation ready. It gives them a chance to get a head start on the season. The crazy season is
January.
Starts in January. March and April are the 90-hour weeks for people who do superintendent search. So March and April are out there. But we took last year a 3.5-month process on average and did it in 5 weeks. So you did feel rushed. There's no question, because you needed to get things done. And if you remember, we talked about, well, let's open it up. Let's see what you get. If you find the right person, you find the right person. I mean, we have done a search in 3 weeks and found somebody. But it is unusual with a search that tight to necessarily find someone and to feel like you weren't being rushed along the way, because you were. So we can do whatever you'd like. I can pull my calendar out and come back up here in early December. I could come to your, maybe, your regular meeting in December.
Thanksgiving's the 28th, and our regular meeting's on the 10th. So that Monday's the 2nd, so it'd either be 2 in a row. Follow me? The first week of December, the first Monday is December 2nd.
And I'm booked that night, I know.
Our meeting is the 10th. We're on a Tuesday again. Do you think that's harming us?
Harming you how?
Like too long, waiting too long?
No. Every year with our searches, we do about 30 a year. On average, 10 of those will post before the end of December. 20 will post after January 1st. So if you post before the end of this year, you're in the first third of searches going out without question. That's just been that way for the last 6 years. So you do have time. I'm just not wanting to rush you. However, sometimes a redo search, people are antsy to get out there and get it out quickly, which is why we put everything in here for you to take a look at tonight. In case you wanted to get out quickly and get moving, then these decisions need to be made tonight. But it'll be your search. You tell me what you'd like to do.
What do you guys think? What do you think, John?
I feel rushed tonight.
I do too. I'm not panicked, but I'd like to take my time and work on this. What do you think, Michelle?
I agree.
What are we being rushed? Are we just talking about posting the vacancy?
No, we're talking about all the elements that Barb's talking about, the entire, theoretical examination of the entire timeline, whether to adopt it or whether
Your
to digest this and come back at it in 2, 3, or 4 weeks with a
It's the-
special meeting in those, or whatever.
Randy, it's the advertisement, it's the questions you put in the application. All that stuff would be done tonight.
But I think even given the decisions that I feel like we've kind of made tonight, that we don't necessarily need to do the survey again, like that probably
Buys us time.
keeps us on schedule with some of what you have here for the timeline, so you wouldn't have to completely redo the timeline, other than the posting. Does that make sense?
I would redo the timeline because everything is sort of a cascading effect. So I would come back if we do this in December instead with a revised timeline that doesn't include the public survey. How do you feel about combining those two meetings? Because it would be interview training, talking about interview questions and procedures, and interview training, honestly, this group here doesn't need, and I can work one-on-one with your new board member to make sure she's comfortable.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
So we could
I don't know why
combine
you wouldn't
those
do that.
two
Yeah.
We
into
don't need
one.
virtual.
Because I believe this group does want to spend some more time on the actual interview questions than we did last time. I think that, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think, right? I think we feel like we left some meat on the bone. When we got to the end of the interviews last time, we're like, gosh, I really wish we'd have tweaked these questions a little bit more to get at some specific things that are, I don't know, germane to our district. I don't know. I mean, I had that conversation with at least 3 of you that I know of.
I like getting things done fast personally, but this is pretty important and we should take our time and kind of dig through it. We've got all the information now. So if we kind of got organized, Sarah shows up with a few things that she likes or doesn't like, and Randy does, and John does, and I do, we could probably get it done pretty fast if we actually dug through the thing.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to too, like the, what is the thing called, the
Posting?
brochure that goes out there.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be worded exactly like last time, or do you guys wanna really dig into it and tweak it more?
Well, this is what I did in 15 minutes today. I'm not saying I'm gonna get what I want, but this is where I'm going. It's like,
So I think to your point, to have people have at least a couple of weeks to digest that, come up with some ideas that you at least throw that in there. We could structure that at a meeting other than, almost like a retreat style meeting too, right? Because it would just be this, it'd be the only topic. Maybe that's better than trying to cram it into another board meeting.
I like that.
That'd be the only argument I would
Could do
make
that.
against doing it.
Yeah, I kind of prefer that.
Yep.
Would you all like to take the hiring criteria survey over again? Has enough changed since last April that if you each took a hiring criteria survey, it would lead to a different leadership profile?
oh, you mean this,
Second page of the brochure.
Create all those different priorities on what
you're
you're
talking about
looking
this
for.
deal?
In the 5 bullet points?
This is the
Under
result.
In
leadership
the
profile?
brochure, this is what candidates look at. This is the leadership profile you were looking for last year, based on the
think
survey
this
you
is
all
the-
took.
I think
Right,
this
and
is,
the 5
we
question,
took.
the 5 leadership skills.
5 bullet points.
Yeah.
You could keep it, most districts
We
keep
can
it because
work on
not that
that
much
too.
has changed in the interim. However, if you want to change the leadership profile, we can send another survey out to everybody. You could all take it again. We could create a new leadership profile. We can do this any way you'd like to do it. It's just because the search last time was so condensed and accelerated, and you have so much time ahead of you now, I don't want you to feel rushed now. I just also don't want you to reinvent the entire wheel, because you were very thoughtful in the decisions you made last year. You did a very good job.
So just to clarify what I think I hear you saying, Barb, the bullet points that we have on the leadership profile, just to jog my memory, those come directly from the survey that the board took and said, this is what's important to us.
Correct.
Okay. So if we wanted to change these in some way, we'd probably want to retake that survey.
Correct.
Let's do it.
Or just tweak what we have?
Well, that survey itself takes 10 minutes to
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
It's not.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite short. I can certainly send it to everybody again.
This equals
You're
this,
talking about the
but this is the way.
public survey?
No.
Just the one that the board
the
members
board
do, where you
survey.
rank
I just don't like
what
the word.
you're
That we
looking
say
for.
what's important.
Gotcha.
think it's-
Gotcha.
I think that might be good, just to even jog our own memories.
Okay.
On why we said what we did at the time.
Okay.
I actually think that the thing that everything we came up with last time was pretty good. Even though we were crunched, I still think was pretty good. The whole process I thought was pretty good. We weren't, as it turned out, satisfied with the candidates, obviously, that, whatever. But the process, the verbiage, we worked hard at that, and I thought that it was pretty solid.
I agree.
So I'm ready to roll with what we had.
Would you like me to pull up my calendar and we can find a date for a planning meeting that's a special meeting instead of weaving it into your regular meeting? We'll do that.
I like that idea.
Sure.
Are we gonna do a retreat, or are we gonna do
Just as.
Well, it's a special board meeting,
Special
but it would
board
be,
meeting.
format would be fairly
Gotcha,
informal,
Gotcha,
right?
gotcha. Yep, because you brought up,
Yeah, but it would be listed as a special board meeting.
I think we'll be fresher than having it embedded in a board meeting.
And we don't have to do it here, and we don't have to do it at 7 o'clock at night. We could be doing this at 10 o'clock in the morning, or something where it's a little smarter and fresher, and I'm a morning person myself. Well, it's 8.
Are you saying we're done now?
What does your
I'm just
calendar
saying
look
that
like, Barb? Maybe that'll help us narrow down.
I could give you dates I'm available, but I don't want to lead the conversation if it makes more sense for all of you to
No alcohol.
say we'd rather do it at 10 a.m. on a Saturday or something, then I can check my Saturdays. Or 6 o'clock at night, special meeting. You tell me. If we're talking early December, I am available the 3rd, not the 2nd or the 4th. I'm available the 5th, the 3rd and the 5th, if we're talking afternoon, evening.
Sure. What does like 4 o'clock on the 3rd look like for folks?
On which way? On 3rd?
Yep.
my calendar really is.
There's a finance committee meeting at noon, but it'll be done by
Well, who
by
knows?
12:15, so.
No later than 1:15
I mean,
for
do we
sure.
want to do it right after that if you guys are already in the building for that meeting? Or do you want to wait till after hours?
I'm happy hour that day. I don't know who we have.
You got a better deal than I do.
I'll just have to reschedule that.
I think the 3rd would be great.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
So what do you think, Sarah? Like earlier? Like Barb just zooms in?
I mean, it's up to you guys. If, I know some people will already be in the building for meetings at 11:30 or noon or whatever it is. If we just want to add on to that, or if you want to go later in the afternoon, 4 o'clock.
What works for you, Barb? Later in the afternoon works better for you?
Anything works
You're
for
gonna
me.
be, you're gonna zoom
I'd like
in,
to be
right?
here in person for the planning meeting because there's a
Okay.
lot of discussion.
Why don't we just do it like at 1:30?
Yeah?
Huh?
Then we're not pushed on the
30?
finance meeting and we can run and get a sub or something and. That works.
Thought Dondelinger Automotive was gonna bring in like.
Okay, we'll bring it in. Thought we moved all the committee meetings to the morning. Talk to the SI. That's what we're gonna call them now, SI.
Tuesday, December 3rd at
1:30.
1:30. Here, this spot,
I gotta be here at
This
8.
room?
I gotta be here at 12.
this room?
This room.
You're supposed to be
Okay.
here at 8 too. Blue Grand 181.
Terrific. So I'll tell you what I wrote down. A couple of things. I'll send another hiring criteria survey link, to all 6 of you, and I'll give you a deadline to fill it out so we can craft a new leadership profile. I will be here in person on Tuesday, December 3rd at 1:30 for the planning meeting. I will send you a new packet. You can look at this if you want, but there'll be a different timeline. I'm going to eliminate the public survey from the timeline, and I'm going to combine the meeting where we talk about interview questions, interview training, along with the day that you announce your finalists and select your finalists. So I'm going to combine those into one. Okay?
And we're gonna have this meeting here?
Makes sense, I guess.
Fine.
Since
We're gonna be here.
Okay. So if we meet on Tuesday, December 3rd, should I expect you want it posted within that week? So I can put a posting date of December 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that? Okay?
Oh, posting for the.
Posting
getting the
nationally, we
posting
just put
actually
it out there.
right?
Yeah,
The
put it
idea
out
is
there.
that, I mean,
I wouldn't break your neck. I'd rather have you do a good job. The way you make it sound is if 30 people go out, 10 will be in December and 20 will be in January. So it's like, if you waited till the next week, we'd be fine. I don't think it's a panic, but if you get it out that week, great.
Okay. It's a pretty quick turnaround, the posting, really, because you make a decision on what the brochure is going to be that night. Our edits are usually pretty minimal. If you have thoughts on it now, you had some maybe, DJ, that you had jotted down, I'm happy to take those, or you can email them to me and I can put them in there. I am going to reach out, Peter, if it's okay to you, to confirm some of the things for the district as far as the finances and the numbers and stuff. I'll send you an email to confirm those for me, if you would. I'll work with Kelly again on getting information to you. I do want to thank Ryan for his help. For some reason, you're not able to get my attachments in the district anymore. Peter didn't get them. None of you could get them.
I didn't get your
Ryan
first
and Kelly
email at
didn't get
all.
'em.
I only got the one email.
They bounced back. They kept bouncing back because I had an attachment. Did you open it with the link okay? Did that work, the link?
Once I figured out that if you went to the 3 dots, you could print it, I was trying to print this thing.
That's the only way I'm going to be able to get information to you, is just in my email, is have the link, as long as you could open it via the link instead of an attachment. That was some of the delay in you getting this until yesterday, because
Well,
it
Ryan will have it
just
fixed
wasn't
tomorrow.
working.
He's the king. We'll get it fixed.
I think they just,
That work?
MSBA emails were looking like spam, but it was only the attachments that were really screwing it up, so. Okay, I think that's all I needed for tonight, is to know the direction you wanted to go with a couple of those big things, especially the
Allows us to
survey
be out in
meetings.
front, but not like rushed.
Correct.
I think it's a smart way to do it, and doing it in a separate meeting, because you know how it is, by the time we go through 3 or 4 other action items, we're a little frazzled sometimes.
Okay,
Well, in the meantime, we can all review this stuff and tweak anything we wanted.
you can, especially in the brochure, the leadership profile.
Yep.
Yep, and if you want to take a look through the last 2 pages in that packet, those are the application questions. And if you look at the, actually, it might help if I tell you this. If you look at the second to last page in that packet,
The what?
second to last page in the packet,
Yeah.
these are the questions that are in Revelis for the applicants to answer in writing. And so if you're looking at this, there's 2 pages this time. This is the list we used last year. We have a new list this year with some new application questions that you could consider. But on this page, last year you asked 6 and 10. Those are the questions 6 and 10. So one of the decisions you'll need to make on December 3rd is, what questions do you want in the application? They can be anything. They don't have to be anything on here. These are just the most common screening questions for you to decide if they're worth interviewing or not. How do
Which
they
one's
answer
last
those
year? The one that starts with please or the one that starts with what?
6 and 10 on the shorter list of 12. The first
Okay.
of the 2 pages.
Okay.
If it's 1 through
Those are
12.
last year.
6 and 10, you asked, along with a question based on the leadership profile for Brainerd Public Schools, why are you the best candidate for this position? That was asked as well. That's pretty standard, that we want them to refer to that leadership profile and answer questions. But otherwise, if you look ahead of time and decide, you like any of these, or do you want to write your own for the application? That'll save some time then that night too, or that day too.
So the second screening priorities questions, those are some new ones you came up with.
The second page are new ones that we're using for this year. This was last year's list.
It has 15 on it.
Correct.
They added a couple.
Yep. Some are similar.
From what we came up with.
No, we just
This
used
is not
6
our
and
list,
10.
this is-
No, I know it.
But
Right,
yeah,
but these are applicant
They gave us
screening,
some
this is
different
not,
ones.
these are not questions we asked.
This
They're-
is just for
they're
their application.
out with the posting, basically.
it's like their little essay.
It's part of their application
For
process
the-
is to answer these
When
questions.
they come in to
Gotcha.
interview, is that
Gotcha,
at the
gotcha,
same-
That'll be that meeting where we combine the meetings together.
Okay.
And
that'll be
before that meeting,
Got
because,
it.
yeah, we'll have, remember we had categories for this leadership profile, here's 6 questions you could ask, for this leadership profile, 6 questions. From what your stakeholders told us, here were 5 or 6 questions that needed to be asked based on stakeholder feedback. And then you each, I think 2 or 3 questions came that night from you folks. Maybe what I'll do is ask you in advance of that meeting to also email me questions from board members. So we'll have some suggested based on the profile, some based on the stakeholder report, and then there'll be a category, board member questions, and I'll just list them all, and you can, from that, pull some that night to ask in your round 1 questions or round 2. So we'll add a step in there that you could send them to me in advance so that I have them on that list.
So
'Cause you were writing them that night, if you remember.
Yep,
So you'll develop a third list then of questions that we send to you. We'll still have these 2 And then we'll have a third one based upon
When we get
questions
closer
that
to
we
the
submit.
interviews, when we get closer to the interviews.
Oh,
This
okay.
is simply for
Okay.
the application. When they fill out an application to be your superintendent, they should answer 2 of these questions in writing. Because when you went
It's like
online,
their essay at the end of their.
But
yeah.
okay.
It's
So
an
that's what
attachment
these
to their
are for.
application, is the answers to
We
that.
had 6 and 10.
6 and 10 on that first list of
Can't
12.
believe
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Across the board.
I didn't,
Yeah, there's a whole other category where we have to pick or write interview questions for the first round and the second.
Right. Right. And then we'll talk through, to your point, Kevin, about involving folks in the interview process. You have more time to do it. We can talk about who gets to be on those. It's
Yeah,
that-
we can hammer
remember
that out
fork
on the
in
third.
road? Yeah.
Yep.
I would suggest that the stakeholder report be placed on the website again because it's still pretty fresh. And I think your
Yeah, that's a
applicants
good-
are going
I
to
think
want to
that's a
read
great
it. So,
Yeah, isn't it just, oh, we took it down, didn't we, after we picked our candidates? I
yeah,
remember
when
you
the search was
suggested that.
suspended, I believe that all came down. I don't remember, but the
Oh.
superintendent search
check.
page.
but we can post it again.
Oh, yeah. Yep,
She thinks
it's
we
still
should.
pretty current.
I do.
Since
But
you're not doing
I
another
just
survey,
wondered
I
if we
think you
ever
should.
took it down.
Okay, anything else for me before I get out of the way? You have a lot more work to do, I know. No? Okay, nice
I'm
to see
interested
you.
in, and we don't have to hold you up for this, we can talk about it in a couple weeks, or 3 weeks. Not so much about what the questions are, is how they're written. And language is important. So
For the interviews.
that's why I'd like to have the time, like when we threw these babies together last time, it was like rapid fire.
Well, and then we were a little more restricted at the time because we had applicants sort of in play already, if I remember right, right?
We
had
were
to be
flying.
like,
I
we
remember
had to be
that.
like, I like 42 and whatever, and we had to be, yeah, it was a little trickier.
It was a little fast.
It was all really fast. And you
Was
did
it?
a really good job, honestly. I thought
Right.
you did a really thoughtful job in the time that we had allotted. So I'll be back here on December 3rd. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much for the time and attention.
Oh, thanks for making the trip
All
up,
right.
Barb.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. You did a
see you
great job
soon.
last time. It wasn't,
again.
you know,
Happy
we're excited to
Thanksgiving.
get going on
Happy
it.
happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so now we will move along to our new business portion of the meeting. And we will start with our first action item, which is the approval to continue with our current cell phone policy per the cell phone policy resolution that we did back, was that August? Where the board committed at that time to, in this particular meeting, make a decision on what we were gonna do before we sent all of our staff and our students off for the holiday break. And so, turn it over to Mr. Grant to kind of kick us off.
Well, we had the information that the student council provided, the last board meeting where they came and spoke. I will just tell you this, yesterday I was at the high school for their Veterans Day program, and Andrea asked everybody to turn off their phones and put them away. And I purposely sat in the student section. Every kid around me, I don't think they knew who it was. Maybe a couple did, I don't know. But everyone looked at each other and said, turn your phone off and put it away. And I just watched. And phones were going in purses, backpacks, pockets. There wasn't a phone on. I didn't hear a buzz. I think the kids have come to the realization that if they do what is asked of them originally, they don't have to get the hammer. They don't want the hammer. And I think they have great respect for what they're trying to accomplish now is in good faith with the board and good faith with the high school and the staff.
That's good.
That's great to
good
hear.
Yeah,
news.
no, I mean, from my part, what I would say is, I mean, I entered this thing wanting to see what some of these other districts around the country that were looking at trying to implement really a full day ban, but the reality is there's no definitive data or best practices that we can draw from. I don't feel like there's any other direction we can go until we either have a problem that we have to resolve,
Right.
or some glaringly obvious data comes out from some of these other districts that it's having this miraculous effect of some sort and we have to revisit it, or the board does. That's my take on it.
I have a question.
Director Donnellinger.
So do we need to do these Board of Education draft resolutions, enforcement, policy reviews for all the policies we want enforced, or just for this one? Because this is like this is a double dog dare you thing, you know? It's like, well, I dare you, John, and John's like, well, I'll double dog dare you. you know? Like, what do we already have the policy. So my question is, why is it in the packet?
It's in the packet so that we can affirm that that's the route we want to go.
So should we affirm other policies we want enforced, or is it just this one?
This one, because we did a board resolution specifically back in August to compel ourselves to do this. Well, this isn't driven by any policy other than we had a policy committee meeting in July and then another one in August. And what we determined was, you know, in order to create a good faith interaction with everybody, all the stakeholders involved, including community members that had questions about this, we said, okay, what we don't want to do is like have no direction and then literally get to this point in the year and do nothing. So we said, okay, we will do something in November.
This is what we're doing, okay?
Yep, so something could be nothing. I know it sounds like a Seinfeld episode, but it could be, you know, that we basically just say that the policy as written. I mean, the only, Randy, you can, you know, jump in here because you're the chair of the policy committee, but the only thing we really have that's out there that's dangling is we have pieces of cell phone policy in 2 different policies.
Yeah, we need to,
And we have a meeting on the 27th where we can probably clean that up finally and get that cleaned up in December, where we get on one set of railroad tracks. We can work with Ali and everybody else on getting that squared away. Because that's the only remaining conflicting piece. The only other thing that was out there that was up for debate was, do we want to try to do a full day ban, or do we want to enforce the existing policy that already exists, which is in classroom time, the phones go away. The problem wasn't that we didn't have the policy, the problem was that it was being enforced inconsistently.
It wasn't being enforced.
Certain teachers were, certain teachers weren't.
The best thing
talked to
that
a few
came
that
out
were
of this
cited.
was self-enforcement. That's what we really wanted to accomplish, was the kids take care of themselves without having to be directed by adults. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, and we achieved that. And kudos to the kids, the staff, and the board for saying, if you could just do this, everything's copacetic and we're fine. And the kids said, sure, we can do. They didn't want to go any further because they knew what the causes were going to be.
Good. I'd just like to make sure that, you know, boards that were before us and all of us and the policies that have been passed should be enforced in this school. And so I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but it would make me feel more comfortable that we aren't wasting time passing policies that don't get enforced. That's all. So this is great. So do we need a motion on it? I'll make the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue with the current governing policy for the remainder of the year.
Sure.
And then, again, policy committee meets on November 27th, I believe. Is that right? Do I have that right?
And if you write a new one, we'll do the reading.
Well, we're not
right?
gonna write a new one, but what we'll do is is it 540 and what are they? I can't remember the 2 policy numbers, but 524 and 540, so that we need to just get the language out of the one and get it to where it's only addressed in one, because it's slightly conflicting, but we've been going off of the one that was already there, which is 524.
But that'll be a separate thing for a separate meeting.
Correct, we'll just reaffirm it, which is, we have to reaffirm the abolition of that language from 540. The language in 524 probably doesn't even need to be tweaked at this point.
Cool.
The only time we would need to tweak it is if there was a decision made in the future by the board next year to say we want to do a full day thing, or we want to create different consequences or whatever, because that's not, you know, that's all stuff you can do later.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Donnellinger.
I'll second.
And, okay, so. All right, so we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Brecken to approve continuing under policy 524 for at least the remainder of the year and revisit in policy committee the cleanup of 540. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next up is the approval of the second reading of policy 435, access to employee mailboxes and school district internal systems. I don't think we need to drag anybody up here for this, but as I understand it, this is second reading. There have been no changes to date. We have some potential changes on tap for the 27th policy committee meeting that will be discussed. But as of right now, nothing changed from the last time we unanimously approved this reading of this policy a month ago.
And so this is a new policy, so it gets read 3 times? Is that the deal?
Correct.
Okay, so this is just to go to the next round?
Yeah, it's a formality to get it through the process, although, again, there have been some proposed changes to the policy that may come back in December. Theoretically, this will come for third reading in December because we have that policy meeting on the 27th.
I'll make,
Director Ward.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that I asked the question last time about Ali. Oh, he is here. About, have the organizations, have the teacher organizations, other organizations been included in the whole process? And I wasn't sure that, if they had input in the process as well. And I'm not sure that the answer was, I think, no, wasn't it?
Who are you referencing, Director Ward?
Well,
The other
the
organization?
teachers' union, the
Gotcha.
labor unions, the organizations, labor organizations, has the staff, has the employees been involved in the process?
Thank you for asking that question, Director Ward. Not the staff population, but certainly the union presidents at the same time with administration were informed of the policy at the same time. So the policy has been shared with union presidents in various unions as well as building principals and administrators all at the same time.
And, Mr. Chair, and what was the feedback?
Question was asked for any feedback. There was no feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Motion?
second.
So we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Spear to approve the second reading of Policy 435 in its draft format on access to employee mailboxes and school district internal systems. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion carries. 5-1. Next up is the approval of the READ Act MOU presented by Misty Jobe, Carrie Ross, and I'll get some exercise tonight because you get to come back up.
Good evening again. Chairman Boyles, Interim Superintendent Grant, members of the Brainerd Public School Boards. Thank you in advance for your time and attention. The topic tonight is the READ Act MOU. But before I do that, I'd like to pause and just make 2 remarks. The first is I want to recognize those that are with me here. To my left is Misty Jobe. She is our president of the Education Minnesota Brainerd, as well as a teacher in the school district. To my right is Carrie Ross, our executive director of schools. I really appreciate these 2 individuals for their collaboration, partnership, their ideas coming together to make sure that we have a product where we're all on the same page, with an emphasis on certainly student achievement in terms of reading. And so the second thing is, I just want to pause and knowing that November is Thanksgiving, we're in the spirit of being grateful. November is also Native American Heritage Month, and I think it's important to recognize our students who are Native Americans and let them know that we appreciate them and value them. Certainly, their contribution to our learning environment is valuable. I also want to take the time to pause and recognize that November is National Youth Awareness Month, highlighting that across the US, about 2.5% of youth are homeless. And in Brainerd Public School, whether in Brainerd, in Baxter, in Nisswa, or our surrounding communities, we have students that come to us where at times they may be in the situations where they're homeless, and we have staff programs in place. We have fundings from title programs to support them, and we provide services to our students just like any other student that is free and appropriate education. And so at this time, I just want to pause and just recognize those two groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the statement that we shared with you in your board memo for the people in the back so that they have a sense of what REACT is all about. The Minnesota READ stands for, R stands for reading, E is to ensure, A, academic, and D is development. So the Minnesota READ Act was passed and signed into law on May 24th, 2023. The goal of this legislation is for every Minnesota child, including multilingual learners and students receiving special education services, to be reading at or above grade level. The parties at the state level agreed that individual teachers would receive one-time stipend that is outside of negotiated compensation. Additionally, Minnesota School Board Association and Education Minnesota collaborated and created multiple models of MOUs. It was then left to the local school districts and the local education in Minnesota to come to an agreement via an MOU. Per Minnesota statute section 120B.123, subdivision 5, Brainerd Public Schools from a menu of approved evidence-based training chose OLA. OLA stands for Online Language and Literacy Academy. We have commenced OLA trainings earlier this fall. The details within the REACT MOU ensures 3 priorities. 1, compensations to teachers and payment to OLA does not exceed what was allocated by the state. 2, support teachers' preparation. And 3, all students will read at or above grade level. Brainerd Public School was allocated state funds to facilitate teacher training and to pay for OLA training. Board approval of this MOU is necessary to trigger the release of these funds. This will cover this year and next year. Both Education Minnesota and Brainerd Public School Administration jointly crafted and support this READ Act MOU. This evening, we are asking the school board's approval.
Thank you.
I move that we support this or approve the READ Act MOU.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion from Director Breckham with a second from Director Spear to approve the READ Act MOU as presented. Further discussion? Director Heidman.
Just a question, in phase 1, how many teachers are in phase 1?
We have, I believe, about 375 teachers.
Okay. And then in phase 2, how many teachers? That we know of in grades that are in grades 7 through 12. Obviously, new hires and things like that we don't know about, but as it sits right now, grades 7 through 12, how many do we expect to be trained in phase 2?
We have about 300 in phase 1 and about 75 will be in phase 2.
Okay.
That includes some of our colleagues from Paul Bunyan Education Co-op as well.
Now, are these just teachers that are involved with literacy and intervention and special ed, or is this, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but the READ Act now requires grade efficiency in every grade, not just grade 3.
True.
Correct?
That's true.
So how are these teachers, I think, I'm not sure who made the presentation, I think it might have been Principal Rasky had said something about the fact that, or maybe not, all I remember hearing is that there are some teachers that aren't used to teaching reading anymore,
So statute,
correct? I mean,
statute 120B12 is very specific about who is included in OLA training. So it's all elementary teachers, all special education teachers, our pre-K teachers, teachers that provide reading intervention,
okay.
and anybody that has anything to do with adopting reading curriculum or making decisions about reading programming.
But I mean, excuse me, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, so the way that we have defined that in Brainerd is a little bit more broad than some of our neighboring districts have done. We've included all of our pre-K teachers, our K-6 teachers, we consider that the elementary focus. Our pre-K through grade 12 special education teachers are in phase 1. That includes our SLPs, includes our EL teachers. We included them in phase 1, even though that they are identified in phase 2. Really what's going to be in phase 2 will be our 7 through 12 language arts teachers, maybe some new teachers to the district, people that don't come to us with the credentials that they've already earned in another district, things like that. For the most part, we front-loaded all of those essential staff into phase 1 so that we can do the work that we want to do with crafting quality programming or revisiting some of our opportunities for changing programming sooner rather than later. Even though MDE has given us a 3-year timeline, we didn't want to wait.
No, I get that. I was just, and maybe it's, again, people down in St. Paul are trying to do something that can be fairly difficult. I mean, if we're looking at proficiencies in all the grades, who's going to be teaching those students?
Well, we're all going to be teaching.
In grade 11 and grade
students.
12, I mean.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, we're all going to be teaching those students. I think Misty's got some suggestions here as well. I'm looking at Misty because at one point we had a conversation about everybody doing OLA training regardless of what their license.
And maybe I'm the one who's confused here. That's happened before.
I can maybe speak to this a little bit. I happen to be an English teacher. I taught 8th grade for 18 years, and I'm currently teaching sophomores and juniors at our alternative education center. And this has morphed a little bit over the last year or so as we figure out how to navigate this. Originally, the plan, or my understanding of the plan, was that every teacher would be receiving OLA training, regardless of what grade level or content area was taught. And so that meant a high school FIAD teacher or a middle school math teacher or content area teachers whose standards didn't really necessarily support literacy instruction in any meaningful way would be spending a significant amount of time being required to participate in a training that wasn't really relevant to what they were teaching. And so the district made the decision here to scale that back and really include teachers for whom this is really relevant to the daily application of instruction in our classrooms. And as a secondary teacher, I was not trained to teach anybody how to read. The assumption was, with my secondary degree, that kids would come to me with those basic literacy skills in place. But we know over the years, as a broad society, as reading scores have continued to struggle and struggle and struggle, more and more kids are coming into our secondary classrooms without those base level skills. And so the idea is to provide all of the teachers who will be providing some sort of literacy services or curriculum support for students, regardless of grade level, to have those training pieces in place to be able to pick up those pieces for the kids who still need those basic supports in place.
Okay.
I think the other connection that I'll make for you, Director Heidman, is our overarching professional learning plan that includes a component called MINDAL, which is about assessment literacy and using data to drive your instruction. That is also a component that all of our secondary folks are doing right now. Next year, some of our elementary folks will be doing that. So that is in conjunction with OLA training to help people use evidence and information in a way to guide instruction and bolster Tier 1 instruction, and be more thoughtful about the interventions we offer outside of Tier 1 to make sure that all kids are meeting that expectation of reading well on grade level.
Yeah. Another question that you may or may not be able to answer, students that are in college right now, let's say they go up at Bemidji State and they want to become a teacher. Are they going to be taught about the READ Act? Are they going to get the training in college so that when they're done with school, we don't have to, at our level, the school district level, we don't have to train them?
Yeah, that is not part of the college curriculum at the moment. So the colleges have their own like course review cycle. Just like we have a curriculum review cycle, colleges have to go through a reevaluation process on a regular review cycle. And they have standards and practices that they have to be, their programs have to be aligned to. Teachers coming out of teacher prep programs are learning about the science of reading. They're learning about structured literacy. They're not necessarily taking OLA or letters or carry-all, but they have a foundational understanding of structured literacy that some of our more veteran teachers didn't have the opportunity to have in their coursework 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or more. So we will have to have an ongoing opportunity to onboard teachers in a structured literacy coursework.
In your opinion, is that a downfall of the MDE program as far as, I mean,
Well, so that's it. MDE doesn't govern higher ed.
no, I know, I
So,
understand, yeah,
But
okay.
you gotta remember too, if you went to North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Winona, well, let's just say they have their own thing in
Understand.
Wisconsin, and then they have a different one in North Dakota, and a
Yeah,
different one in South
understand.
Dakota, you'd be learning all these different things. So we'd only be able to hire teachers, and the only teachers that would have that skill would be Minnesota teachers. I have a quick question. Did we change the, so Randy told me this, and I didn't think he was right, but so this OLA is just training. I thought that OLA was training plus curriculum.
Nope,
So have we changed our curriculum?
we
for
have
the
not
READ Act,
changed.
Or are we teaching the same stuff, just teaching it a little different way?
We haven't made any changes to our instructional resources
That curriculum?
yet. That's curriculum. Yep, that's
Just use the
curriculum.
easy words, you got the concept in there.
Yeah, we haven't changed any, we haven't made any changes yet because we haven't finished the training. So we don't really know what the next best steps will be until we complete the training. We are using resources in a different way. One of the examples would be the work that the group did last year on word study in our elementary schools. Our data showed us we needed more concentrated focus on foundational skills in phonics and phonemic awareness. So we did a bunch of work researching what best practices would be, what evidence-based practices are, what do we need to do to make sure that our students have more knowledge and skills of phonemic awareness and phonics skills. And it turns out we already had those resources in our schools. We just weren't using them in the way that most benefited students. So we're still using those materials this year, just in a different way.
So would it be safe to say that our plan is to update our curriculum in the next couple of years? Or do you think what we have is fine and we just gotta teach it different?
I don't know how to answer that, Director Dondelinger. One of the things that you'll see in the MOU is money that is set aside in our allocation to create, I'm calling it loosely a task force because we haven't identified what we're calling it yet, to bring together a group of the teachers that have finished OLA training to help us design what the next plan is. What kinds of things do we need to focus for instruction? What kind of resources do we need in order to be able to do that, to reach our goals for student achievement? Go ahead.
My goal as a classroom educator would be to be very intentional with including classroom teachers in those conversations about what resources we have that work and what resources we have that need to be updated. And I think that our administration is committed to, with this task force, committed to providing teachers that opportunity, the people who are doing the boots on the ground work, to make sure that they have a voice in and helping determine what is best for our students with classroom instruction with regards to reading, because we all have the same goal. The goal is for our kids to read well and read better.
Thank you.
Further questions or discussion?
Well, I have one more, and the question is, and it's the same question, it's just a different way, because you guys are like attorneys, I have to keep asking the same question. Where you think it's something we would buy or something we would design? Would the task force write the curriculum? Because I've had quite a few teachers reach out to me that have told me that they've been trained to teach, not write curriculum, and that we've done in the past. Before I was here, Misty, you've been here for a long time. Carrie, you're fairly fresh. Ollie, a whole bunch of us, is that took quality teachers and then all of a sudden turned them into curriculum designers, for lack of a better term, or writers. And I've had quite a few elementary teachers, at least, tell me that that's not what we're good at. That's not our deal, and that we should buy curriculum. And then people that aren't here anymore, old directors, told me that there's 10,000 curriculums that we could pick from. And I'm just curious, are we gonna look outside the school district? Or is this something that we're gonna design ourselves? I'm not saying that we're not qualified to design it. I just kind of am curious before it's done and the dust settles is usually when I get to find things out. And people are asking me about this, parents. So I just am curious, I'm not expecting, to lock it down, but which direction do you think the task force, which direction do you think you'd like to go?
So I might be fresh to Brainerd, but I'm not fresh to
No, I know
the work of curriculum development, and I'm certainly not fresh to the work of literacy leadership. So what I would say is it's a both and. There are high-quality resources to use as a base, but it's never enough to purchase something that comes out of a box. There always has to be the art and the science of teaching reading combined, and only the teachers that are teaching the curriculum have the expertise to do that additional crafting and that design in order to make it work within the system that you're at. I could easily go and say St. Cloud or Bemidji is doing XYZ, and it's working for them, so we should buy that. But it doesn't work in our context the same way it works in another district. There's always a yes and scenario. So we start with something that is evidence-based. We start with something that is high quality, and we develop it in a way that is meaningful and relevant to the kids and the system that we have.
So basically, that's what we've been doing now. So the information I've been getting is it's true, but it's maybe.
Well, maybe we didn't.
Because we did have a curriculum,
Yeah,
they're
so-
just kind of tweaking it a little bit, not really redesigning it.
What you're saying is, I can't speak to because I wasn't here for the full implementation.
Neither was I.
I did a bunch of things with the middle school when Misty was at the middle school at the beginning stages of the development, but the devil's always in the details. It's never just the act of purchasing something. It's always the things that happen the next year and the year after that and the year after that until you fully know what the resources are that you have.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for letting me know. Now I understand much better.
Okay, good. Happy to help.
You always do. Harry knows her stuff.
Other questions or discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Everybody have a great
Thanks.
night.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to informational. We'll do a BPSF update real quick with Director Spear.
Yes, so as you guys know, we've got bingo coming up as a fundraiser on December 9th. There are very few tickets remaining, so if you don't have yours, you'll want to get on that. Also, you might remember every fall we do the Warrior Worn initiative where they bring in, or you can drop off your old Warrior wear and they wash it up and sell it. So they've made a little over $2,000 and that money will go to the pantries within the district. Still deciding how we might do a matching funds type challenge with that and or the money from the bingo sales also going towards that. So more to come on that, but that is where that landed. And also the group is reviewing application right now for 4A grants for educators in the districts who have brought forward some of the projects that they'd like to see funded in their classrooms.
Very cool, thank you.
Yep.
Equity Task Force update with Director Brecken.
Yes, I don't have an update. Our equity task force meeting was canceled last month. We'll be meeting on Thursday.
Great, thank you, Director Brecken. And we'll bring up Marcy for the Business Services report. Come on down, Director Lord.
She could have just kept rolling. She has another one to do. He could have just kept her moving.
Yeah. I know I could have.
In your board packet is the enrollment report. It is down about 27 from the beginning of the school year, and our average is 15, so it is higher than usual. I did check with the Principal Rusk, and she said that drops are being reviewed, and they will provide more feedback once they learn more after that review.
What do you mean by drops?
People leaving.
People leaving, so they're gonna like survey them, get after them, find out what's going on,
See what-
check up on them?
And that does look like it's mostly at the high school level.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Are these EDMs?
These are, so the column for 11.4 is head count.
That's actual Pete.
Yes.
Good.
Yay.
It's hard, because when you see the bottom, it says ADM, so I'm like, I think this is real people, but,
Yes.
and the budget is ADM.
Yep, you
Gotcha.
got it.
I think we'd know by now. 2 years of looking at these, I think I'd have it down.
And then also in your report, or in your packet, is the financial report. You'll notice that food service is up about 3% compared to last year. The majority of it is in food, so we will have to review that during the revision. Community service is also up about 4% compared to last year. The big hit is in salary, and it's a change. We went from some of our teachers going from hourly to salary. So in the end, it should shake out okay, but it is a change from last year, which is why it's such a large increase. And then also there was a increase in staffing in Fun and Friends. So the more kids we get and the more staff we can hire, you're gonna see an increase in payroll. Building construction and the OPEB funds are a little bit higher, and so those ones will also be reviewed during the budget revision, just to make sure we're tracking. And then I did have a request, we did have to complete a survey for the unemployment, the summer unemployment, and they will base our payments on that. And I just wanted to give the board an update. That was for quarter 2 and 3 for summer unemployment. We spent about 409,000. So just keep that in the back of your mind, because we are going to get state aid on that. But once that state aid is gone, that's going to be our responsibility
What, do you get it for 1 more year?
No little mandate, huh?
until it runs out.
Until it runs out. Well, don't delay on sending in our application to get it back. Oh, you just missed it by a couple hours, we just ran out.
Yeah, no.
Jeez.
So that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report with the soulful stylings of Mr. Grant.
Yeah. I'll just go back to Veterans Day. I made it to Harrison, Garfield, Riverside, and the high school. I think that's all that I made it. I think if you don't go, you know, you're missing something really special. First of all, at the elementary levels, you know, we talk a lot about scores and so forth. Well, those kids at those schools, they all sing the Star Spangled Banner without any help of reading or seeing on the projector on the wall. They sang Grand Old Flag. They did the Pledge of Allegiance. They sang America the Beautiful, all remembering with, I'm sure, tutelage before that. But the key is that what I want to bring out is when they're focused on doing some things that are really important to them, they're hitting home runs. And I think that's one of the things maybe we got to rethink about a little bit. Let's help the kids refocus on what we want them to learn, and maybe our scores will go up. But the community is there. It's really cool to see the parents, and all the veterans are invited to each site. They introduce them. They have them stand up. They talk about the different forces. There's a guest speaker at all of them. And it's just really impressive. At the high school, it's a little more formal, obviously because of the size and so forth. But I will tell you this. It's very rare in a large setting, 15, 16, 1,700 students will sit for 1 hour and be quiet and pay attention and be respectful and appreciate the veterans that were introduced, appreciate the main speaker, appreciate their peers who did a phenomenal job in singing and playing their instruments, and the simple fact that every student was given a flag, and you didn't see them throwing them around or anything like that. I mean, I know sometimes we kind of get harder on, you know, the behaviors and the attitudes and so forth, but you would have seen 1,700 kids, perfect patriots that day for that hour. And that's what was really impressive to me is, you know, when you ask them to do something, they do it. And if you give them rationale on why it's good to do it, they understand that. And it was just really phenomenal to see that at different grade levels and so forth, everybody was in the same frame of mind. And I think for the elementary kids to really say something out of instruction and so forth, but to reflect on they're proud to be an American, I think that happens a lot more than what we think, and we only sometimes get to see the stuff that doesn't, you know, make us feel good. But all you had to do was be in one of those schools, and you would have no question our kids are learning, and they really are good citizens we're raising. And they understand the purpose of what Veterans Day is all about. And so that was pretty cool, I thought.
Awesome.
That's it. Cool.
Thank you. Okay, Director Brecken, anything to report on facilities and long-range planning?
Yep, I've got a few bullet points here. So the scoreboard installations at the softball field, Brainerd High School, and the elementary schools are complete. Apparently there are some really cool scoreboards at those sites. Riverside's roof over the gym will be replaced this summer. It was not part of the renovation process for Building 181. Turf at the high school should last 2 more years with proper maintenance. So I think we can give credit to our buildings and ground people that they have been maintaining that surface, because typically by about now it needs to be replaced. 2 quotes from realtors for the Buffalo Hills property. We need to choose and then get that property posted. Temporary accommodations are being made for accessibility to the BHS field and track. Jeff will look into more options near the bleacher area. We're having some accessibility issues with some students and families.
I'm sorry, I know everybody wants to go. The Buffalo Hills property, what's the latest there? I wasn't aware of.
At our meeting, Marcy could maybe talk to this more, but at our meeting, we had we had 1 bid, but we didn't have the bid from Positive.
Did we get the second one yet,
bid,
Marcy?
a bid
get
to
it.
what? Purchase it? Or to list?
Be the lister.
Okay, got it. Don't need it, that's fine.
No, probably not a
The
bid.
realtor.
We're looking for
Sorry,
a
bid
listing
was-
agent
yeah.
for the property.
So we haven't decided on the listing agent
Okay.
yet because we didn't have that information.
Oh, I see, so we don't have to decide tonight. I thought that it
No,
was.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, not a bid.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
I just didn't want to read about it in the paper again.
Like we bought the farm. We bought a farm.
We bought the farm, all right.
Any
All
other
right, I make a
updates on it?
motion to dismiss.
Well, just real quick to highlight, everybody can read the meetings that are listed here, but do take note, on November 27th, not listed here, there's a policy committee meeting. And on December 3rd, we now have a special board meeting for the superintendent hire, things that we talked about with Barb today.
Yeah, December 3rd.
With that said, I will go ahead and accept Director Donlinger's motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion from Director Donlinger and a second from Director Spear to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?